Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Jank Tank episode number 50, Big 5-0. My name is Timothy Zaccanino, and I'm back from the dead, boys. I'm not going to get into, all the details here, but I was in the hospital for, almost 2 weeks, and Teld and Danelius covered a lot of podcast content while we were gone for Peasant Cube stuff, but I'm back, and I am ready to talk about, very excited to talk about, this is the Spider-Man review. Yikes.
Tim, just out of curiosity, what color is your shirt?
What color is my shirt? Just go and skip to the punchline. I don't know. I don't know where this is going.
I was just trying to see if you were, back in black.
Oh, nice.
I thought you were making a Zoomer joke about how they can't listen to stuff without looking at faces and also their phone at the same fucking time.
That would have been good as well.
I'm gonna be real honest with you guys. I thought this was the Return to Strixhaven review. Apparently, it's the Spider-Man review. So, woo, my enthusiasm just tanked.
No. It's Through the Omen Paths, Volume 1.
Oh, whatever. Whatever.
All right, you guys want to call that a review? Because I don't think we're going to summarize it.
Let's just kick it, and we'll be back in a month when real stuff happens. Actually, Avatar's the next set, so real stuff's not happening until next year, but Avatar looks better than Spider-Man, I'll give it that. But okay, I'm here with Chris and Teld, obviously. It's good to talk to you guys again. I haven't been on a podcast episode since the beginning of last month, but good to hear from y'all. We've been chatting a lot before kicking up the episode, mostly to kind of put off talking about Spider-Man, I assume. But I want to get this out of the way from the beginning. I think the Spider-Man set is the least excited I've ever been for a Magic the Gathering set, but I really want to try to take the role of bringing some positivity to this review because we are not excited about this. I'm going to try to approach this from here are the cards, here are what they do, and mostly ignore the Spider-Man part of it. Mostly out of respect to the 4 or 5 listeners who are actually really big Spider-Man fans and excited about this stuff. So I will complain and groan and occasionally fart throughout this episode, but I will try to be positive.
What about a groan fart? Have you ever done one of those where you fart and then
you're just groaning in public?
You're just groaning. Yeah, very similar to lizzing. Different impulses, different explanation.
I'm not going to look that up right now. I don't know what that is, and I'm not going to.
It's laughing and pissing at the same time.
Oh, okay. It's like sharding. Sure. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to also try to be positive where I can because I don't think it's fair to the designers of the actual cards who don't really have a say in these. And I'm going to try to judge the cards that they came up with, not the material they were.
Oh my God. Can you imagine being a young designer who's finally gotten their opportunity with Wizards and they're like, welcome to the big leagues, kid. And you're like, yes, finally, I'm realizing my dream. I'm working for Wizards. And they're like, your first card is Spider-Punk.
We need 72 cards named Spider-Man in this set. Go read all the comics that have ever existed. Have either of you guys ever been comic book nerds? Maybe not even Spider-Man in general, but comic books.
No, I have no judgment for it, but
I liked the MCU stuff and the old Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies through. I think I was with it for about as long as most normal people were, which was the first arc or whatever through, I watched Endgame. So I'm familiar with these. I've played Marvel Snap, so I recognize a lot of these characters. I don't like Marvel as an IP. I really don't like comic books that much. That's not really my jam either. So most of my experience with it is through the movies, video games, or, supplemental material rather than the comics themselves.
Yeah, that's kind of my experience too. My actual first experience with Spider-Man in general was being 4 years old and being at a friend's house or with my brother or something and watching someone play an NES or some system Spider-Man beat 'em up game, and a flash up 8-bit picture of Venom popped up on the screen and scared the shit out of me as a kid, to the point where I went home that night and I told my dad I can't sleep. I'm really scared of the black and white guy from the spider thing. It, and I'm terrified of spiders in real life. So I don't know if Spider-Man did me in or at the age of 4 or what, but that's my first memory of Spider-Man was Venom, making me unable to sleep for a week. Let's go ahead and let's get our shout-outs out of the way, or not shout-outs, but our housekeeping stuff out of the way and talk about some big picture stuff, and then we'll get into the cards. By the way, Teld, great stuff floundering through the intros and outros of he's just I don't know what I'm supposed to say here, but no, I really did. I really did enjoy the Peasant Cube episodes that you guys covered with the Edge of Eternity stuff and the Skyfisher stuff. I thought that was really fun.
We're glad to have you back because you are much better at this whole intro outro guiding thing. But we did have fun. We went completely off the rails if you haven't seen it, and we did the first Jank Diver tier list. So we're gonna we've opened the floodgate for that content.
Yep, more tier lists on the way. Remember, the best way to support Jank Diver Gaming and the Jank Tank podcast, all 50 episodes of it, is to join our Discord server. Come draft with us, give us your feedback. It's a great place to hang out with like-minded individuals and talk about Cube, retail, limited, all things Magic. You can find links to our Discord server wherever you're listening to this podcast. We host tons of scheduled drafts throughout the week, including our Peasant Cube on Saturdays, the mainline Jank Diver Cube on Sundays, F&M style drafts on Fridays where our players vote on a cube to play, as well as various guest cubes created by members of our server throughout the week, so there's always plenty to do. You can find our socials on Twitter at JankDiverGaming, where I basically spend no time these days. YouTube.com/JankDiverGaming, where you can find that tier list and the great episodes that Denelius and Teld put out in my absence. And you can find Teld streaming on twitch.tv/TeldTalks. And Chris, you might appreciate this. Last night, yesterday was my birthday. Happy birthday to me. I'm old.
Happy birthday, Tim.
My back hurts, blah, blah, blah. All that good stuff. Yesterday, in honor of my birthday, I hosted a cube on our server. I don't know if you saw this or not, but I spent a very long time recreating a new cube that included every single card that's ever been in the Jank Diver cube. It was a 1,550 card.
Have we
cube.
seriously had 1,500 different cards?
Now that's I went through the history on the blog or whatever for the mainline unrestricted cube, so I might have missed some things. There might have been some stuff that wasn't recorded.
How long did that take you? Holy shit, that must have taken like
don't worry about
days.
it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
And we fired off a 10-person pod, and let me tell you, we have come a long way as design. So obviously, when you include every card, you're going to get the one ring in a pack with Lantern Bearer, or my favorite was tapping at the window, like sitting next to Shieldred the Apocalypse and Coma the Cosmos Serpent or whatever.
Yeah.
And the stuff we saw last night, one of the 3-0 decks, I think, was a Nadu deck that won with River's Rebuke, which is the 6-mana bounce everything your opponent controls.
Yep.
I got absolutely hosed by Aquazots. I got to do some really gross Field of the Dead stuff. Like, it was really like... People had great decks with just like some of the worst filler you've ever seen.
That's amazing.
And like a 1,500 card cube, there's not a lot of mana fixing floating around because the lands are the lands. You know, it's it's whatever. So that was a really fun time. I think people enjoyed it. Even the whole premise was like just come out, have fun, and make fun of the cube designers. Like don't try to spike this too hard. But we saw some pretty nostalgic stuff. There were cards that we saw in the packs that I was like, I do not remember ever having that in our cube, ever. Like, I do not know why.
Did Viashino Pyromancer make an appearance?
Oh, my God, no. But Cunning Coyote was there. Like, there was some questionable stuff, and then, obviously, there was all the power outlier stuff, too, which Carbon hate drafted the Orcish Bowmasters for some reason. I don't know why he hate drafted my birthday cube, but whatever.
Also, like, Bowmasters is good, but, like... burn a pick on it so other people can't have it good. It's just like that. Okay.
Sure. I got rocked last night. I went 1-2 with a green-black Field of the Dead deck where I got Field of the Dead like pack 3 way too late to like actually optimize it. But I was doing cool stuff with Elvish Reclaimer, if you remember that card. The elf that can like sack lands to fetch up other lands. Really cool with Field of the Dead.
Yeah. We were trying to make lands out of the graveyard thing matter because we were so desperate for green black to do something before we just kind of realized it doesn't really have to do anything.
Well, Mop did take Crucible of Worlds and tried to play it at some point. So
nice.
He had Coma in his deck too.
We were doing that before we had fetches too.
It was people were like, why is this? Why is Winota in here? And I was like, first off, don't ask. Second off, like
I explained the premise of the cube.
Do you remember how bad Red White was? Like we tried, and then Winota. Yeah. Anyway, that was a fun time, and people agreed that like they want to do it again at some point. Though that's going to keep growing. I am going to keep up.
Hell yeah. I did. I do remember I got Agent of Treachery off of Winota once. Like the deck literally couldn't cast Agent of Treachery. Like you had to hit it off Winota, and I lost to it. It made me happy and sad. You know, it's one of the advantages of being a cube designer is when you get your teeth kicked in, it sucks, but like you got to see something that you made do what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So that's why it's a perfect format for me, because I'm bad at Magic. So if it optimizes the potential enjoyment angles for me.
Yeah. So that was really fun. I know that's a pretty big aside for people who are here to talk about Spooderman or whatever, but let's get into Spooderman. So big picture stuff. We're going to review this for the mainline cube. We will be doing a Peasant Cube as a Peasant Cube review with Danelius to follow this up, so stay tuned for that. The set theme is obviously a Universes Beyond set in the Spider-Man universe and like the whole Spider-Verse, which means there's a lot of different versions of the same characters and stuff like that. Logistically, this set is smaller than the average set. It's about 80 cards smaller than the typical standard release for whatever reason.
About 50 of those remaining cards are definitely last-second additions that are just reprints.
Originally, this was going to be a 100-card set, and they bumped it up to 181 cards so they could stick a bunch of New York references in, like hot dog stand and stuff like that. I don't really get it, but cool. It is a smaller set. It's actually designed for the new Pick 2 draft format, which is like 4-player pods where you pick 2 cards at a time, just like lightning quick drafts and stuff like that.
Are they doing that because LGS attendance is down?
I think they're doing it because some last-minute change with this set forced them to, like... I'm assuming there was some last-minute thing that forced them to, like, redo what they were planning to do, and they just needed an excuse to, like, make a smaller set and make it seem normal or whatever. I don't really know. They haven't really explained, like, why this was for Pick 2 draft format or if that's something they really want to do moving forward, but it does mean like things feel more condensed. There's only 5 draft archetypes instead of 10. There's a lot of hybrid cards to hopefully like try and bridge the gaps for your Pick 2 draft. It's also unclear if people will just draft this like normal anyway, despite the way it was designed, but whatever. We'll see how that goes. That's going to be on Arena, so people will get a feel for whether they like that or not. I don't have a strong opinion about it right now. And then the big kind of elephant or spider elephant in the room is the Through the Omen Paths thing, which maybe we've touched on the podcast before, but they didn't get the rights to use Spider-Man art on Arena or any Marvel art for that matter. So they created this thing called Through the Omen Paths, which means on Arena and Magic Online, instead of the Spider-Man cards, you're going to have retrained versions of every card in the set with different names and different art, but the same like type lines and rules text and stuff like that. Just a really like sloppy way to kind of address this, but they had to put these on digital platforms so that people could still practice for like standard and whatever other formats the cards see play in. So it's a really messy thing. What I really wanted to do was have those versions of the cards to kind of like just mention the names. I assume most people want to hear the actual Spider-Man name of the card. That's just going to be more recognizable from the beginning, okay. But we only have seen 1 or 2 of those cards. The stuff's getting spoiled, like fully spoiled after this review. So I have
a bold prediction to share real quick. I think that this is the set that is going to make Anthony from Lucky Paper quit Magic.
You think so? Well, is he like anti?
He's like. I haven't been engaging with Magic content for like a little while now, but it was kind of like a running thing that a lot of the stuff that Hasbro has been doing has been sort of like denting his enthusiasm for the game, and I just like this whole thing is so offensive. Like this might just be the straw that breaks the camel's back for that dude. I think he might just be done.
Does he engage with Arena at all? I got the impression they're not like
no. Those guys are strictly paper guys.
So they're stuck. So I should mention like. This is kind of a boon for us because we don't want to play with a bunch of cards named Peter Parker and Spider-Man. So as long as they're not the stupidest names in the world like Arachno Boy or whatever, like this is actually probably a plus for us in our cube. And we get to play with like in-universe stuff or whatever instead of actual 15 cards named Spider-Man.
We need to hire a team of like guerrilla lawyers to like find ways to sabotage Wizards every time they do this. They have to give us like off-brand versions of the cards. Yeah. They just have to keep doing it.
The like handful of cards we've seen for the Through the Omen Path honestly give me some like cautious optimism because they're not. I'm not gonna say they're good art. They do look like your typical alchemy kind of slush level art, but it's definitely the naming and art of the few cards we've seen have looked more Magic than whatever we're about to talk about is.
Yeah, like Kaza the Swarm Lord or whatever instead of Spider-Punk is just like, okay, I'll take it. I'm not like thrilled about it, but I'll take it. And just FYI, this is confirmed for anything Marvel related that comes to digital platforms. And they kind of dug themselves a hole. So even if they do get the rights to like Thor or X-Men now, they've already created an alternate Spider-Man universe, which begs the question why you couldn't have done that in the first place, but whatever. Anyway, enough about that. We're going to talk about the actual Spider-Man cards as they'll be printed in paper. Two more quick mentions. There is this little side thing called Marvel Spider-Man Eternal. It's for all the starter deck cards, but pretty much all the cards are terrible by design, so I don't think any of them are going to come up in this review. And then there is a bonus sheet called the Marvel sheet or the source material sheet, which is 40 reprints that all use original Spider-Man art from the comics, which is kind of cool. I'm not going to say the art is bad, but this is another one of those bonus sheets where the cards look bad as like Magic the Gathering cards, even though the art is like, it's like cool. It's Spider-Man art or whatever. It's also, there's no theme to it. It's literally just 40 cards. They probably had the art already and they had to match like cards to the art rather than the other way around, so it's going to give us some cool reprints, but the cards they look bad as Magic the Gathering cards, but the
you
art
could
is
probably
fine, so.
at this stage just build a commander deck that is not like immediately recognizable as a Magic product.
Yeah, you 100%. Yeah, you could probably do that with just Spider-Man cards alone, since they gave you a 5-color Spider-Man commander or whatever. Set mechanics. This is the one big praise I'll give this set, is I think the set mechanics are actually very cool pretty much across the board. So Connive is back. That was from Streets of New Capenna. That's when a creature connives, draw a card, discard a card, and then put a counter on it for each non-land you discarded. That was always a really fun ability. Ledger Shredder and Rafine.
I was about to say, famously a mechanic on the best blue creature ever printed.
Yeah, and notably, sorry, I'm just going to jump in for a second. The connive gets used in a couple of interesting ways because it bridges between what the modified you're about to talk about and another mechanic in the set, which I thought was really elegant.
Yeah, the mechanics actually link together in pretty cool ways here, which is cool for such a small set. Modified was from Streets of New Capenna. It's the blue-white theme in this set, and it cares about your creatures being equipped, having counters on them, or being enchanted by auras you control. Pacifism in your opponent's creature does not modify it, funny enough. That's really only going to show up on blue-white cards here. We will talk about a few of those. And then MDFCs are back, and these are actually really cool because there's a cycle of mythic rare characters that have a transform ability that turns them into the back half, but they're also MDFCs, so you can just play either side of the card from your hand. So they're transforming cards that are also modal double-face cards that you can play on front or back from the beginning instead of like trying to play the smaller version. If you just have the mana for the bigger version, you could just play it straight away without and skip the front half, which I thought was really neat and not obvious from the initial spoilers. I did not realize these were MDFCs. New mechanics, Mayhem. This is a riff on Madness. The difference here is that if you discard a card with Mayhem, you have until the end of that turn to cast the card. This does not let you cheat timing restrictions like Madness. So if you discard a card with Mayhem on your opponent's turn and it's not an instant, you presumably can't cast it. A couple small differences is that Madness casts from exile, whereas Mayhem casts from the graveyard, which does matter for cards in this set that say, like, when you play a card from your graveyard, do blah, 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 or whatever. Mostly it's just, like, tone down Madness with a couple advantages because you have until the end of your turn to cast the spell instead of casting it right away. Web slinging is like a really hokey name, but it's kind of a cool like ninjutsu style mechanic. It's an alternate casting cost that says if you have a tapped creature on board, you can cast your web slinging creature, usually for a cheaper cost, by returning a tapped creature you control to its owner's hand. And it usually lets you get like a pretty strong spider creature card into play for a really cheap cost at the expense of returning something tapped to your hand. This also does not cheat time and restrictions. It's just an alternate casting cost. And then really niche stuff that I can just mention for 4 seconds. Harness, we don't really have to talk about it. It's just a new mechanic on the Infinity Stone, and there's only one Infinity Stone in the set, but it'll show back up. And then there's like Spiders Matter stuff and Villains Matter stuff, which does take some of the cards that would be cool and makes them like unplayable for Cube, unfortunately. So you'll see the word Spider show up a lot, and it does ruin a lot of cards, unfortunately, for Cube perspectives.
Yeah, very insular and parasitic.
Yes. Okay, I feel like I've been talking for a very long time. Do you guys want me to just like transition into some white cards here and get things rolling with the cards? Unless you had anything you guys wanted to say about the flavor or the mechanics or anything.
No, we'll get those complaints out in the middle of the review.
Okay, well, the first card is called Peter Parker.
Hell yeah.
It's Peter Parker, and it looks a lot like Tom Holland. I'm just going to say that.
You guys love Peter Parker, right?
Peter Parker next to Sephiroth. I'm going to sack my Peter Parker to Sephiroth, and you take one. Anyway, Peter Parker is 1 and a white for a 0/1 human scientist hero. When it enters, create a 2/1 green spider token with reach. And then it is one of these MDFCs, so you can pay 1 green, white, blue to transform it as a sorcery, or that's also the cost of just cast in the back half, which is Amazing Spider-Man, 4/4, Vigilance, Reach. Each legendary spell you cast that's 1 or more colors has web slinging, green, white, blue. I don't really want to focus on the back half here because, like, if you have Bant mana, maybe you get to transform or play this, but that's not the reason you're playing this card. I think Peter Parker as an alternative, like, Raise the Alarms card that's 2/2 stats across 2 bodies, notably with the weaker creature being able to transform into a 4/4. I think this is pretty cool. It's obviously not pushed like a Johnny, which we don't need cards pushed like a Johnny, but if you are in the space where you want those Raise the Alarm, Resolute Reinforcement style cards, I think, a 2/1 reach for 2 that also just spots you another body that can become bigger later in the game is kind of cool.
Yeah, this is probably the best version of these effects not named a Johnny, right? Because the card is token forward, which is actually what you want on your token producing card like this. It's part of what makes a card like Blade Splicer good, is that when you find something to do with the body, whether that be picking it up, blinking it, sacking it, reanimating it, whatever, the token that you get, the extra upside you get, just comes into play. So with this one, we don't have a ton of ways to do this. We are currently on like Sun Pearl Kieran and a few other things. But like you mentioned with Sephiroth, if you sack this, you lose less than if you sacked a Raise the Alarm token, right? It's not a huge upgrade in terms of what you're getting, but also like a 2/1 is better than a 1/1, right? Than 2 1/1s, right? Because now when you block your opponent's 2 power, 2 toughness, 2 toughness creature, you can actually trade for it. They can't blow you out with removal the same way. It has reach, right? So it catches a lot of really important cards like Malcolm. There's been a complaint in the cube about a little too much flying relative to the ways to block them. This is a way to do that. I don't really love using a mythic rare on on what's functionally a uncommon level effect, but I do think this is a meaningful upgrade on previous versions of this effect.
Yeah, and I don't care about the Amazing Spider-Man at all, but it is kind of like you will take like a Spara's headquarters if you have this in your pile, and maybe you get to upgrade your 0/1 into a 4/4 Vigilance Reach, which is actually like a real body and starts beating down. So if you can get that free kind of blue source in your green-white deck or whatever, like you do get access to the back half, and the ability is whatever, who cares, but it is just a huge stat upgrade. It's kind of like just throwing 3 +1/+1 counters on Peter Parker or whatever.
Yeah, this card's also amazing if you're still on the card Soul Herder. This Spider-Man is an amazing curve out with that.
Yeah, it makes 2/1.
Play this, make a 2/1. Yeah, you play your Soul Herder, you make another 2/1. Like there weren't actually a ton of good targets at 2 mana before this card. So this is just another card that gives you a good curve on that.
Mm-hmm. Next one, I think this actually gives a card we run, I think, a little bit of a run for its money. Spectacular Spider-Man. Just Amazing Spider-Man into Spectacular Spider-Man. Good stuff. This is 1 and a white for a 3/2 with Flash. It's a spider human hero. It has 2 activated abilities. Each of them costs 1 generic mana. The first one is Spectacular Spider-Man gains flying until end of turn. The second one is you can sacrifice Spectacular Spider-Man. Creatures you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. And the immediate comparison that comes to mind for me is Selfless Spirit, which is the 2 mana 2/1 flyer that you can sack to give your board indestructible. This one obviously doesn't have native flying. You have to pay mana to give it flying. And it also, you have to pay mana to use the protection ability, which means you don't always have access to it like Selfless Spirit. But Flash adds something, especially when you can like blank a board wipe or something if you have the mana to flash this in and activate the second ability right away. And it does just hit harder. It's a 3/2 for 2. So assuming you can get it in or you want to give it evasion or whatever, it hits harder than Selfless Spirit. So I actually think this is one of the ones that, assuming we get non-stupid Spider-Man art on the arena version, like I think we should probably consider this card for our white section.
I think so. There's been some commentary that we have too much flying in the cube. And like I'm sympathetic to that, but I do think that it's one of the ways that white aggressive decks distinguish themselves from the other aggressive colors that have less evasion. Right, and I think Tim summarized the card pretty well. I think this is something that we're probably going to look to test unless we look at the white 2 drops and just don't see anything that we think is worth cutting.
Now, would you replace Selfless Spirit with this, or would you want to run them side by side?
I would want to run them separately. I mean, we still have to have that big overarching conversation about what we're going to do about White, but it feels like White has two things going for it in terms of what is in the color pie versus like Black or Red or its aggressive colors, which are evasion and making things stick. White also tends to have 3-drops that accrue value the longer they stick around. Instead of just being like giant that stick that you trade off with or whatever. Like White has more sort of like engine-y creatures in its wheelhouse than Black or Red do. So like anything that can keep them safe, I think is good. I think this is probably a solid card worth testing.
Yeah, reasonable ambush viper. Like you can, if you block a token, obviously you just get to eat it, and you can. It's a 3 power and 2 toughness, just makes it a much better blocker when you need it to be. And on top of that, the hexproof on the activated ability. Yeah, you have to pay mana for it, but there are an increasing number of cards that don't care about indestructible, but do care about hexproof. So stuff like the Swords to Plowshare variants, whether that be Path to Exile or Unable to Scream or whatever. This is a good way to protect your value accruing engine. As well as being a board protection spell. So yeah, I don't, again, like flavor art aside, I think this is a totally testable card. We'll see how much how damning those 1 mana activated abilities are, because they do seem rough, but also like the baseline on the card is just pretty okay. So
sorry, just one thing I want to add real quick about the mana cost, because like I feel like I talk about this when it comes to aggressive decks a fair amount, which is it does have a mana cost, which is going to be relevant early in the game. But if you draw this later in the game, when you're in your aggressive deck, you've got like a couple of cards in hand, and you have, like you're sitting on 5 lands. When you draw this in the late game, you're effectively drawing like a 3/2 Selfless Spirit, like in a way. There will arrive a point in the game will arrive where if you top deck this, it's better. It's effectively like better than a 2-drop creature, because like you're spending 1 mana that you were going to have lying around anyway every turn to make it worth more than drawing your 2-drop, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, the hidden 3 mana mode on this is also pretty good, where there are spots where your opponent is on Wrath or Bust against your deck, and in those spots you can just hold up Spider-Man and then flash it in response to the Wrath and pay the 1 to proactively protect your board.
Yeah. Assuming that's not Sunfall, which was in the 1500 card draft last night. I'm gonna move on from this because there's like major Spider-Man gooch in this art, and it's making me uncomfortable. So I'm gonna go ahead and scroll down at this point.
More Spider-Man gooch. Let's go.
And we're going straight into Origin of Spider-Man, 3-0 on Spider-Man references in the name here. I'm gonna actually pass the rest of White here to Teld, because the rest is cards that Teld added to the list here.
Did I add this one? Okay, whatever.
I didn't add it.
Origin of Spider-Man is 1 in a white, and it's a saga. And so on chapter 1, you create a 2/1 green spider creature token with reach. On 2, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, and it becomes a legendary spider hero in addition to its other types. And then on 3, target creature you control gains double strike until end of turn. So this is kind of ends up being like 3/2 worth of stats for 2 mana that also gives you a pretty big attack turn potentially. I think this effect is okay. I think there's some stuff you can do with it being an enchantment or sending itself to the graveyard in some cubes. I think the +1 counter scales really well with the double strike. Overall, I'm not super excited about it, but I guess I must have been the one that put it on there. It was probably really early in spoiler season, but this card's okay. I don't think it, I think you want to be taking advantage of some layer of synergy with this card, like whether you care about modified or the enchantment or whatever, but it's okay. If you get a big flyer, and by the time chapter 3 comes around, it does hit hard.
Maybe I added, this was the first card I think spoiled from the set on official spoiler season or whatever, so maybe I added this when it was the only card that we knew about, but I don't think I did. This doesn't excite me at all. I mean, in order for this to be good, you have to be doing something more than what's written on the card, whether that's playing with other spiders or enchantments or sagas or whatever. So, I mean, just this is a 3/2 that gives you like a telegraphed combat trick on the 3rd chapter, so I don't really see the appeal of it, but I don't know who added it to this list, but
I tossed it on there like last minute.
Okay.
I was just thinking about like it's a 2/1 or it's like a delayed 3/2 that gets you like the double strike's going to push some damage, but I just tossed it on there because I like in my head it sounded interesting when I read it for the first time, but we probably have better 2-drop options.
Okay, sure. Like Peter Parker earlier.
I know these other 2 are Teld because they were. I had to, and again, I'm trying to put the show notes with the the episodes these days.
Oh yeah, they're all
these cards were all upside down and like flipped around and stuff. And I tried to put them in position before recording, but these are Teld editions for sure.
Yeah, so first up is Friendly Neighborhood. So this is 3 and a white for an enchantment aura. You enchant a land, and when it ETBs, you make 3 1/1 green and white human citizen creature tokens. And the enchanted land has 1 tap, so really you're paying 2 mana, right? Target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each creature you control. Activate only as a sorcery. This card just kind of, I saw it and it kind of piqued my interest because 4 mana for 3 1/1s is not the best rate. You know, you could do something like Hop to it and get 3 for 3 mana. But being a game object does have some upside. It's not as notable here in the main line as it is in Peasant, but it's still generally an upside on cards. But more importantly is the activate ability. You know, this spots you 3 creatures. So assuming you've played some other creatures, I could see this activate ability be something along the lines of like pay 2 mana, give a creature, you know, +4/+4, +5/+5 with some regularity. And if you get that or more, I think this is a pretty good way to push through combat damage, particularly given that white has access to some evasive creatures. Also, this goes completely ham with my favorite red 1-drop as well.
A Heartless Hero, yeah. The thing that makes this tough for me is not what's written on the card. It's what would this replace in a cube, you know?
Sure.
I guess some other token maker, if you really want to go big on tokens, I could see the upside of this. It's not immediately apparent that it's super powerful, but I also am not going to dismiss it because that activated ability, like you do see some sloggy games where green-white is just have like 7-8 creatures on board and you just need to like boost the trampler or something. So there's probably something here. We could consider it. I'm not sure where I land on this one.
I think if we go bigger on tokens, I think it's probably worth a test. And I know it's effectively 2, right, to give +1/+1 because you're tapping the land as well, obviously. But I think the way that I anticipate this playing out is that you're not actually going to activate it a whole lot because the value is going to be in the fact that you can. I think this is going to be a go to combat swing. Your opponent has to.
It's sorcery only. It's sorcery activation only.
Oh yeah. No,
this would be
significantly less
really
good. That would
really
be
strong,
so good.
I think. Yeah.
That would be so strong. Yeah, I still think it's fine, but I'm less interested in it now.
Would it be a good with Luris moment if I pointed out that you could cast the front half of Lingering Souls, cast this, and then flashback Lingering Souls and give one of your Lingering Souls tokens like +7/+7?
Is any of that good with Luris? What's that got to do with
No,
Luris?
I just mean that like
Lingering it's good with Lingering Souls.
Is
sure.
the Luris in this case, yeah.
Yeah, this is cool. We could consider this at some point. Definitely like 450 material is what comes to mind for me, not necessarily 360, but we can discuss that with our white rework. You guys both seem to like this next one. This is one of the bonus sheet cards. I actually like the art on this too. I don't like the stupid text box being bolded the way it is, but the art's kind of
let me attempt to read through this because the white text on the white background is
Here, let me do
rough.
Let me do you a solid real quick. I'll just give you the actual real card.
Do we have the actual card pulled up? Hopefully this is the one we'll get.
It's underneath it. It's underneath it. There
okay.
It is.
All right. So this is Comeuppance. So it's 3 and a white for an instant. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to you and planeswalkers you control this turn from sources you do not control. If damage from a creature source is prevented this way, Comeuppance deals that much damage to that creature. If damage from a non-creature source is prevented that way, Comeuppance deals that much damage to that source's controller. I don't necessarily think this is super good, but it kind of has like Settle the Wreckage vibes. And man, if you have this in a cube and you attack and just get Comeuppance, it's going to be a tilter. This is going to be a rough card to get hit by.
Yeah, nothing good can come of play in this in your cube. It's like an ultimate fog type thing, like against damage. My experience with this was when it was first printed in Commander, and it was excellent when it first came out. In cube, this is the type of card that first off preys on people who don't know that it's in the cube, which is I think not great. Settle the Wreckage did that as well, and also just like. We use the P word from the white section here from the beginning polar, right? Like there are times this card can do literally nothing. It doesn't prevent board wipes, most board wipes. And like if you play against a good player who knows it's in the cube and you leave 4 white mana up, like, I don't know, it's very telegraphed. So I think there is potential to the card. It's not the type of card I'd want to use a cube slot on because of the just like super blowout versus do nothing nature of you know what this could do, plus very like just going to prey on like weaker players or first time drafters or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't really want to run this. Sometimes I have cards on here. I've mentioned this before that I just want to talk about them because they're kind of neat or cool or unique.
Yeah. Comeuppance is also fun to say. Chris, do you like this card?
I thought it was interesting. I thought it was kind of an interesting, like, subtle variant. That's it.
How are you going to feel if you get comeuppance?
Well, he's going to feel great because he's playing Black Sack, and you're going to lose 15 life for doing that.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's true. Fun little note here from the Commander people, or anyone who plays like red sweepers, like Storm's Wrath or whatever, or Our Devastation is. This bounces all damage from spells to the controller as well. So if you play like Storm's Wrath and they respond with comeuppance, it prevents all the damage and deals 4 to the person who cast it. For each creature that you control that would have been dealt damage. You could also like fire this off in response to like a Ghost Fire Slice to basically negate the Ghost Fire Slice and hit your opponent for 4, but obviously it's 4 mana, redirect at that point. So the combo is always with Blasphemous Act. If your opponent Blasphemous Acted and you come up and they just killed themselves, it would kill them in response. Okay, moving into blue. I think this first card's actually really neat. A take on a card we're seeing quite a bit these days. It's Norman Osborn, aka Green Goblin. Maybe we can do something about that name on Arena. But Norman Osborn is 1 in a blue for a 1/1, can't be blocked. When it deals combat damage to a player, he connives. So again, draw a card, then discard a card. If you discard a non-land, put a +1 counter on it. He transforms for 1 blue, black, red. So Grixis mana +1. And again, you can just play the back half of this card as Green Goblin, which is 1 blue, black, red. For a 3/3 with Flying and Menace, spells you cast from your graveyard cost 2 less. And each non-land card in your graveyard has Mayhem. The Mayhem cost is equal to its mana cost. So if you discard a card for any reason, you can cast it from your graveyard until end of turn. And it will cost 2 less because of the Green Goblin's static like cost reduction ability. So again, I think Green Goblin is actually a really cool upgrade to the front half here. So I'm not going to ignore it completely, but focus on the front card. Norman Osborn is kind of like Suspicious Stowaway, Shoreline Looter, Looter Ilkor, whatever you want to call these cards these days, these 2 mana 1/1 unblockables. But this one actually grows as an unblockable creature, which I do think puts it above Shoreline Looter, definitely puts it above Looter Ilkor, Suspicious Stowaway. Assuming you're discarding non-lands, you're doing that for some reason. This can actually become a bigger and bigger unblockable creature, which I think is really interesting, on top of like Connive is just kind of generally good for you as well.
Yeah, I kind of missed that. I mean, one, this does grow. I like that Looter Ilkor, or not Looter Ilkor, excuse me, Shoreline Looter. I really like that card starts generating actual value. But you did point out that I missed. This is one of the ones of these mythic flip cards that actually has some internal synergy, because I missed that we could discard and then get Mayhem later in the turn and still use it. I was thinking of Mayhem as like Madness, where we had to have the Green Goblin ability when we discarded the card, which makes me like this a lot more, because now you've got a growing unblockable looter that chips in damage and smooths your draw, kind of like a Malcolm, that in the late game, if you're facilitating it, you can generate some card advantage. You can get a big guy for relatively efficient. Like if you put a counter on this, let's say you just put 1, right? You're chipping in 2 a turn, and then if you flip it, you're presumably getting a +1 because you're going to cast your card out of the graveyard that you discarded and get 2 less on the cost. So you hopefully can do that. But then you've also got like a 4/4 or a 5/5 Flying Menace, and that's a legitimate giant threat. Though in some spots will be easier to block. I actually, you kind of talked me up on this one a little bit. I missed that particular synergy, and I actually really like this just as a blue card.
Mm-hmm. And just to spell that out like a little more directly, there's 2 kind of hidden things here. First off, as you mentioned, whatever counters Norman Osborn gets from Connivin stay on the Green Goblin when you transform it. So if you got 2 counters on Norman Osborn and you transform it, this isn't a 3/3 Flying Menace, it's a 5/5 Flying Menace. So it's bigger than it reads on the card. Enough so that you're probably never actually casting this as the Green Goblin. You want to cast it as Norman Osborn. And then the second thing you mentioned there, again, just to kind of like be more explicit about it, is if you hit with Norman Osborn, you draw a card, you discard a non-land, and then you transform this, you still have that card you connive to the graveyard, which you can cast from the graveyard with Mayhem for 2 less that same turn. So if you discarded like a 3-drop and then you flip this into Green Goblin, you can cast that 3-drop from your graveyard for 1 mana. And I think those are all meaningful upsides on top of like what's essentially like Shoreline Looter or Suspicious Stowaway or whatever, which honestly, sometimes you can just ride that to victory,
Yeah.
Play this, make it a 2/2, make it a 3/3 unblockable, and just start jamming and protecting it. So you don't even have to flip it into Green Goblin if maybe you don't even have the mana to do that.
Yeah, this card's also big commander bait because the backside is Grixis colors, first of all, great colors to have for this particular ability. But like the casting cards out of your graveyard that you discard and getting cheap value on them is just like so commander. If your cube is doing more graveyard stuff, if you have like a graveyard synergy cube or a discard synergy cube, this card's just going to skyrocket even more, right? This card's actually, I really like this design. I have to admit, the more we've kind of talked through this one, this is kind of rising in terms of my, like, the designs I like. This might be one of my favorite cards in the set, just because this design actually ended up being really elegant, and I hadn't really thought about it until we started talking about it.
It's a very cool package of effects that all kind of work together. I think this is one of the cooler cards in the set as far as design goes, for sure. Chris might remember when Suspicious Stowaway was revealed in Midnight Hunt, and it was just like a revelation to have like an upgraded Looter Ilcore in the modern age of Magic or whatever.
Yeah, content creators were really excited about it. Yeah, and it's just amazing. It's just amazing how far it's been surpassed at this point, like over and over again, including by like uncommons.
Yeah. Shoreline Looter is better than Suspicious Stowaway for sure.
I think so. Yeah.
One more thing here is like if you have looters like Malcolm or Kitza or anything like that, like they do work with Green Goblin. Whatever you pitch to the graveyard, you can cast from the graveyard for 2 less mana. So
this is great in our currency converter deck that we've been building.
Currency Converter is turning some heads. It's turning some heads.
Is it really? What does that card do?
Instantly spawned its own archetype.
What, in the main line?
Yep.
Yeah.
Anytime you discard something, you basically tuck the discarded card away, and you get to turn it into either a 2/2 or a treasure later on, depending on what card type it is. But we saw it really go off with Persian the other day. Like, he built his whole deck around it, and it looked very impressive. We even got the coveted Carbon, this card is not okay. You guys have to remove this after a couple weeks. Like, basically,
I didn't have that on my bingo card.
I didn't either, but it looked very good. I was surprised by just how much discard you could build around it to make it work.
Yeah, well, basically every blue card that we play loots.
That's true.
That's why Thopter Fabricator is so good.
Yeah, you guys ready to add the third or fourth random blue looter to the cube?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, let's keep moving. Two big pickups here for blue to kind of close things out. And I guess close things out, we only talked about one card, but
we need to start with one of your comments on Ponder, because I do feel I do feel the vibe you're talking about here. This particular one.
Oh yeah, how the best cards we've been getting from the last like 3 bonus sheets are all blue cards. Like Ponder. I mean, we're going to talk about Ponder, Mystic Confluence. Counterspell keeps getting reprinted on these things. Urza Lord High Artificer was on the Final Fantasy sheet. What else did we get? We got some other...
Cryptic was on the Final Fantasy sheet.
Like, they're like, forget about white cards. Let's put amazing blue cards on these bonus sheets. And I'm like,
they have basically at this stage, now that we've got Confluence and Ponder, they've given us like virtually every wish list blue card that I had, that I still want.
We got Mana Leak and Thought Scour like out randomly like a couple weeks ago, which was just out of the blue.
Scour, good. Let's see. As far as blue counterspells are concerned, there are still a few that I'd like, but I'm not desperate for.
Yeah. I mean, blue is starting to overlap with Vintage Cube shockingly fast, given these bonus sheets. But I mean, we don't really have to discuss Ponder. Just reminder: look at the top 3 cards of your library, put them back in any order you may shuffle, and then draw a card for a single blue mana. Like, traditionally, one of, if not the most powerful blue cantrip, depending on like where Brainstorm lies in your meta and stuff like that. So. Yeah.
I also have reasonably high hopes that we're going to get the original art, because as far as I'm aware, the original art is already coded onto the client because of that stupid fucking artifact that makes it. So I don't see given like the general low effortness that they've been going with recently, I'm leaning on them being lazy and just giving us the thing that's already in the code base.
Yeah, like they don't need to commission new art for all these bonus sheet cards because they're all reprints. So just give us the art that already exists.
Yeah. Plus, Mystic Confluence's original art is also great. So.
Yeah. Does need to be mentioned, Ponder, much like Brainstorm, does get a little bit worse in environments like ours that are no longer running fetch lands. Still very powerful card selection. There's a lot of ways to mitigate that downside, but you do have to work a little bit to get your deck shuffled. You don't get it for free in the main line cube anymore.
Yeah, how I would phrase that is not that Ponder gets worse in these environments, but Ponder gets so much better in Under, because the ceiling on Ponder is so high that it's like hard to say it's ever worse.
Ponder is still fantastic even with all of the downsides, just like Brainstorm is still fantastic even with all of the...
And this Ponder art's actually not even that bad. I wouldn't put this art on a blue card. I'd put it on a blue-red card or something. But the Mystic Confluence art is just like, what are you doing here? We should read Mystic Confluence. This is not as well known as Ponder. It's 3 blue for an instant. Choose 3, and you may choose the same mode more than once. Counter target spell unless its controller pays 3, so you've got a mana leak on there. Return target creature to its owner's hand, or draw a card. So what this very often ends up being is you have to blow 1 or 2 modes on the counter spell just to make sure something gets countered, and then you get to tack on draw a card or return a creature. Though, if you only have to fire off 1 mana leak, this can be 5 mana, counter a spell, draw 2 cards. You know,
which is insane. That's the game. That's the game right there. If your opponent tries to cast like a 5 mana,
you just three for 1
green thing into it. If you're vaguely at parity and your opponent tries to fire off like Questing Beast or something, and you mana leak and draw 2 cards, that's kind of the game right there.
To the point that I actually have some serious concerns about this card. Like we've talked about wanting to get it, but leave up 5 mana, just make your 4 to 5 mana cards completely unplayable is really sketchy. Every function on this card is pretty good. Like if you only have to use 1 mana leak, which most of the time you only have to use 1 mana leak, then all the other combinations are really good. Counter a spell for, the 2 counter spells plus draw a card is still good. There's a card in the mainline set that's like 5 mana, choose 1, draw 3 cards, or counter target spell, draw a card. And this card is miles better than that, and almost every combination
better.
Almost every combination of effects on this is really good. I think draw 3 is probably the worst mode, and even that in some spots is going to be a game winner.
Well, yeah, because if you're in a spot where like you're under so little pressure that you can fire off like 5 mana, draw 3 cards, like that's insane. Like drawing 3 cards because you didn't have to do anything else is still really wild.
Yeah, I mean, return 3 creatures at instant speed is also like not irrelevant. Like you'll do that.
That's gonna win so many games. That might in our cube that might be the most used mode actually. Like counter spell bounce 2.
Yeah,
like,
I mean on a lot of board states, I mean it's basically you can play this as like instant speed Rivers Rebuke essentially.
Yeah,
for cheaper.
I've also mentioned before that I think Torrential Gearhulk is basically unplayable if you don't have Sublime Epiphany in your deck, and this is another card.
A wild take.
I told him the same thing. I told him that's a ludicrous thing to say.
That's okay. As it usually goes with these, I'll see you guys in 3 months. All right. Anyways, I think this is another good card that can give you some life to that corpse. You can Mystic Confluence into your Torrential Mystic
game-winning corpse that wins games.
Yeah, that just completely bodies people with or without Sublime Epiphany, like, regularly.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, you guys play the cube and give me that opinion. Okay, whatever.
Okay. Right. Yep.
Literally the last time I played the mainline cube, I lost to Torrential Gear. Like, flashing back, go for the throat or something. Like,
okay.
Just 2 for 1 me.
I'm going to die on this hill, guys. Sorry.
Look, everyone knows that the best thing to do in the cube now is going to be to Torrential Gearhulk back like Ponder, obviously. So
we can't do that. Literally can't do that. But
Ponder's an instant. Only. Read the card, guys. Read the card.
Oh, they power crept Ponder. Oh,
yeah, they did.
Ooh, okay. Moving into black with Eddie Brock. Actually, black has some pretty cool stuff to talk about here. So Eddie Brock is 2 and a black for a 3/3. Human hero villain. I guess Eddie Brock is kind of a hero villain, isn't he? When Eddie Brock enters, return target creature with mana value 1 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So I'm gonna mostly ignore Venom here. It has words on it. It's big, schlocky, giant Jun 6-drop, but like whatever. It's huge. Unless you have something really cool to say about it, it's kind of just like a giant value machine. I don't really care about that back half, even if it's a nice little bonus on top of this 3-drop. But what do you think of just Eddie Brock here? 3 mana, 3/3, fine stats, get a 1-drop back from your graveyard. Not a 2, not a 3, but literally just a 1-drop back from your graveyard. Is that going to miss too often, or is that just like, is that going to hit enough?
I think it's kind of medium. I think it's fine, but I think when you compare it to something like, obviously a very different card, but I'm just talking about on power level for like a mid-range deck. If you compare this to like Carsey Revenant, I don't think it's anywhere even close.
Maybe I shouldn't ignore the back here because the back is adding
Yeah.
actually quite a bit to the just like 3-mana 3/3 here. I'm not gonna read it though because like it's not an effect you build around. It's just a giant dude.
I don't think that when you're evaluating whether or not this card is good enough, you can view the back as like bonus, because without it, I don't think it's good enough. Like, obviously, this depends a lot on what your cube is doing, but like, I think that the straight up front mode is like miles behind Preacher of the Schism, for example.
I think so too. Like arguably worse than like Lord Skitter.
I think it's definitely worse. I mean, if you're doing any kind of like black wants to make cheap free bodies to throw at shit or sacrifice, like this compares really unfavorably to Skitter, to Ophiomancer, obviously to Sephiroth, which is insane. And then from a mid-range perspective, like Preacher and Carsey Revenant are both fucking nuts. There's probably some black 3-drop I'm not thinking of that we don't play because it's too good and annoying that's better than this. I think it's fine.
This is kind of like a modal card of like 3-mana reanimate a dude, and the backside is basically Gitrog Monster. Or not Gitrog Monster, Gitrog Wild Ride. Is that the name of it?
It is very similar to the Gitrog, which so I agree Eddie Brock is medium, but maybe the back half is like the thing that like makes you play Eddie Brock, and then you have like a mana sink that just does a lot of damage, draws a lot of cards or something like that. Again, I could read the card. It's just like, it's so schlocky and jundy, and it's just like, you don't build around this. It's just bonus on top of Eddie.
Yeah, in our cube, I don't think this is very good, but I will say if you're running the card like Archfiend's Vessel, or you have some of these 1-drops that are actually good to recur, I think it gets some extra value. But I think in our environment, this is basically a Jund 6-drop most of the time, because like our black 1-drops aren't even good to reanimate, and most other colors, the only other color that has any real density is red, and like you just don't care about, you're not putting this card in your Monastery Swiftspear deck, right?
No.
No, you're not putting this in your Monastery Swiftspear deck over any of the really aggressively tuned red 3-drops. So I think this is fine. I think it's just okay.
Yeah, the 3-drop black creatures that we have in comparison are probably better. I do agree with that. Which I guess that's going to come. The other 2 creatures we're going to talk about are also black 3-drops. So Agent Venom is 2 and a black for a 2/3 symbiote soldier human. It has flash, menace, and whenever another non-token creature you control dies, you draw a card and lose 1 life. So the stat line is different, but this is basically an upgrade to Midnight Reaper from whatever Guilds of Ravnica, I think. Flash being pretty big here. Menace doesn't really like change my opinion of this effect on a 2/3 very much, but flash is like obviously a big deal when you're talking about this sort of like, let me draw cards when my other dudes die. Chris, I saw this card and immediately thought of you. I thought this was like the type of thing that would pique your interest.
I think it's decent. I think we, as Magic players have access, or cubers, we have access to a lot of really powerful black 3-drops. I think that this is decent. I don't think that the Menace is a throwaway. In fact, I think if this didn't have Menace, I probably wouldn't really be particularly interested in it at all. Menace is really good in black, basically because Doomblades and cheap removal exist. Like the classic, you lined up like a blocker, you lined up 2 blockers who can't individually kill this thing, and I'm gonna push or blade like one of them. I think this is solid. I don't think it's crazy, but I think it's okay. I think it's solid.
I mean, yeah. Midnight Reaper has been like super outclassed for a long time anyway, and like this only adds a little bit to that package. Yeah, it's not like pushing the package like Sephiroth pushed like some other 3-drop aristocrat card or something like that. It's just an alternative that makes you like reconsider like whether you want this sort of effect for your black aggro or aristocrat style decks.
Agreed. This is obviously miles better than Midnight Reaper, yes, which was a favorite card of mine for a very long time.
Yeah. That's whatever. Doesn't get me excited. I'm not actually... Inoffensive kind of has me off these type of cards. Like, I get that this... Oh, wait, no, this doesn't work with tokens. I was going to say this works with tokens, but no, it does not. No. Inoffensive was, like, read really powerfully and ended up being kind of jank. I don't know. This style of effect, I feel like Morbid Opportunist is kind of the gold standard because it works on your opponent's cards. And that's just the only one of those that I've ever had any real feelings of like, wow, this card's actually good.
I was just gonna say, I think like where you're gonna get the most value out of the flash here is like not in response to a removal spell or whatever. It's when you flash it in like post box during combat. or something like that. And I think the body is okay. Like 2/3 menace is okay, especially like if your opponent controls a planeswalker. So the combination of flash and menace makes it really difficult for them to like adequately prepare for keeping their planeswalker alive if it's relatively low in loyalty, right? Like even if they leave a blocker back, that's not going to be good enough. But like I could see trying this in the 450. I don't know what we would cut from the 360 to make space for this.
Same thing with Eddie Brock. Black 3s are pretty good here. And this is what I wish more Magic designs looked like. This is a very clean card that's not super pushed, but that does mean it hurts its viability for Cube. Like, not being pushed. Yeah. It does mean it pales in comparison to all the stuff that has been pushed over the last year or so. Teld, did you add Oppo here? Nice, fun, clean Magic the Gathering Commander design that exists for some reason.
Everybody loves Opposition Agent, right? It's 2 and a black for a human rogue with flash. You control your opponents while they're searching their libraries, which is some wild text. But in addition, while an opponent is searching their library, and remember, you control their what they're searching, they exile each card they find. You may play those cards for as long as they remained exiled, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast them. So essentially what this reads, if you haven't played this card before or seen it, is that when your opponent casts a tutor effect of some sort, you flash this in, you get to take their tutor, select the card that you would like to tutor for them instead, take a look at their hand, and then also you get to put that card into exile and cast it. And then your opponent also has to deal with this before they can tutor again. This is a not for us card because we don't really run much in the way of tutors. You know, it'd be really funny to flash in and like tutor your opponent's Stoneforge target, but that's about the best you can do with it in our environment. But in environments that are heavy on fetch lands, that are heavy on tutors, demonic tutor, and all the various cards like the timeless cube style, vintage cube style power level, this card gets much more powerful and is a key part of like control-y disruptive attrition decks and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Not to mention the fact that even if you don't even if you don't like fuck with somebody's tutor or whatever, even if you just like they go to crack a fetch, you go to crack,
that's game
like
over.
They go to crack,
that's game over.
It's pretty much I was about to say that's game over pretty much. Like,
because just to be clear, they don't like you're choosing what they tutor for, but they don't get that card. You're the one who gets the card. Like they didn't. It's not like you choose what land they're getting and you just give them a worse land. You just straight up nerf their gank their fetch land.
Stone rained them and then got a land out of it.
You get the land. This is such a. I hate this card. And you mentioned it, Teld. One of the things people don't know, and I'm sure on Arena it just does it for you, you get to look at their hand when you control them. Like, you're searching their library, and it's like, oh, I'll just look at your hand real quick because I control you right now. And it's the dumbest little addition to this card that, like, people don't seem to know about.
Yeah, I do have to give them credit, too. We've bemoaned a lot of the art in this set, but I have to say, this particular card
this
art
is
piece,
pretty sick.
It goes hard, yeah. The card
is this a comic book art piece? Is this like one of the ones that's ripped straight from a comic? Okay. It kind of looks like a spider themed Chaos Space Marine. It's pretty rad.
Yeah. This goes real hard.
Chris, do you want to take the next one here? I'll give you a real text that you can read if.
No, I can read it. This is Saw in Half. Oh, I didn't realize that this was a reprint.
It's a reprint from an unset. It was from Infinity.
Oh, that's really crazy. Yeah, this is pretty wild. So Saw in Half is 2 and a black for an instant, destroy target creature. If that creature dies this way, its controller creates 2 tokens that are copies of that creature, except their base power is half that creature's power, and their base toughness is half that creature's toughness, round up each time. Really, really cool card. I got really, really excited when I first read it, and then I immediately was like, this seems like sick for particular styles of combo, but I don't think it's a decent general effect.
Well, it's a bad removal spell. You're not supposed to target your opponent's creature.
This is a target your own stuff card.
No, for sure. No, that's what I'm saying. Like, I could see. What makes the card interesting to me is that I could see scenarios where casting Saw in Half on your opponent's creature is the thing that keeps you from losing the game. But I don't see you doing that and like as a result of that like winning the game, if that makes any sense. Like if your opponent's like swinging with their like 6/6 trampler, you really can't afford to block it. Like in a hardcore emergency mode, it's like okay, instant downgrade to two of them. Like I take no damage, yada yada. But that's so niche. But it's a cool combo card.
That 6/6 trampler is probably like Tovar's Huntmaster, and you just give them 2 more 3/3 Tovar Huntmasters that come with the wolves.
Yeah, I think that this card is interesting enough but it's okay. So it's simultaneously, it's interesting enough that I want to run it or try it, but it's also broken enough that I feel like nothing good can come of it. So like even inside of a fair space, like one of the kind of go-tos I would come up with is like Blade Splicer. All right, so you Blade Splicer, you target this with Blade Splicer, you get 2/1/1 Blade Splicers and then 2/3/3 tokens. So you generated 7 points of additional stats for like 3 mana at instant speed. You can dodge removal and just double down on ETB, LTB triggers. You could like, a lot of times cards like Blood Artist are kill on sight. And so you can protect your Blood Artist and get 2 more Blood Artists. Like there's a lot of stuff that can be done with this. Also, this is actually hilarious with Torrential Gearhulk,
baby
right?
Boy, Torrential Gearhulk. I was waiting for
you make 2 baby Torrential Gearhulks and then you get to flashback 2 more spells, which is really funny. But anyways, there are so many interesting things that you can do with this card. But again, none of them feel like things that are going to be things that generate good play patterns. And at the same time, I just can't stop. I don't know, like since I saw this card spoiled, I've just been sitting around thinking about things you can do with this card. And it just, I don't know, it seems like a card that would be really fun until it was not, and then it would be really miserable.
Could be fun. I mean, it's a sacrifice effect essentially that lets you copy. It's a sacrifice effect that clones the creature you sacrifice, which you've outlined enough like really powerful things that can do, but
I expect to see Kit really, really pissed off when I'm like playing Brawl and someone casts this on their like Slimefoot and Squee, makes 2 tokens, like gets a left behind. Like obviously you're gonna have to like sack 1, but then like you want the Slimefoot and Squee to be in your graveyard in the first place.
Yeah.
And, like, or just like even something like more basic than that, just like a really like Song and half a Grave Titan would obviously be super funny.
Should mention too, for people who care, Dualcaster Mage is on Arena, and this card goes infinite with Dualcaster Mage. It lets you make as many 1/1s as you want. It might be unwieldy to do on Arena, but Sol and Half is also a type of card that a digital client handles so much better than paper. For people who've ever played this in paper, you have to track 2 tokens that have half the power and toughness of the original creature. It's just unwieldy. Last black card here. I don't want to... The card doesn't matter here. I did want to mention the Soulstone here. It has the Harness ability. It's basically an indestructible mana rock that taps for black, which is like, if you care about that stuff, it might be fine. But I wanted to mention here because it's an indication that we're getting like a lot more Marvel sets. Because Mark Rosewater has confirmed they are going to do all of the Soulstones. There's 6 of them in total, I believe. And assuming they do 1... Infinity Stone per Marvel set, that means like minimum 5 more Marvel sets in the future.
God, that sucks so bad. We're gonna get like a Daredevil set where they somehow try to milk that like thin IP for an entire set's worth of cards. It's gonna drive me insane.
I do think Spider-Man is probably excuse me, as bad as a Marvel set can get because you just repeat the name of the character so much, but I think like something like X-Men could work, like something that has a huge roster of characters.
Oh, are you not mentally prepared for, what is it, Thor, Lady Thor, Beta Ray Bill, Thor, 5 different Mjolnirs?
I'm hoping they're not such small... Whatever. I don't want to get into it too much. I don't want to talk about this card too much. One thing I wanted to mention here. This is one of the few cards we actually have seen the arena version of. It's called like the something Terminus, but apparently like Infinity Stone must be copyrighted because they actually changed the card type to like Terminus or something like that, and they actually changed the I think the harness word to a different word as well. So like there is some like actual card type changing with the arena version. It doesn't really change anything. It's just funny that happened. Yeah. Moving into red, which has a whopping 2 cards to talk about. I'll let Teld, did you add Gwen Stacy or did I assume you added Gwen Stacy? Yeah.
Yeah, so Gwen Stacy is another of the modal creatures. This was the red one. So it's 1 in a red for a 2/1 human performer hero, not a spider yet. When Gwen Stacy enters, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card for as long as you control this creature. And then the transform / backside is 2 and just got mana, so blue, red, white. You get Ghost Spider, which is a 4/4 spider human hero with flying, vigilance, and haste. And whenever you play a land from exile or cast a spell from exile, you put a +1 counter on Ghost Spider. You remove 2 counters from Ghost Spider. Exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. So in our environment, you're probably not going to be adding too many extra counters to this. Like, the only way I could really see getting it is like you know, we do have some impulse draw effects laying around, so there are ways to do it, you know. But for the most part, this is a 2-mana 2/1 that draws a card or demands a removal spell to keep you from getting the card out of it. And then it also flips or is the backside of a like big hasty dragon. And those are almost never playable on their own, the big 4/4 flying haste dragons. But when you get it on a modal value card, I'm a little more interested. I think you kind of have to want both sides, but like kind of like the Norman, I don't think it's as good as Norman Osborn, but I think the front side is just kind of generically playable-ish. And the backside, if we can get to it, is a pretty powerful way to go over the top and kill our opponent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
this might be better than Brynhilder for what that's doing, because it doesn't kill
itself. I was actually gonna say the opposite. I think. Well, I mean, maybe
they're not 1-to-1 like in what they're doing, but they would occupy the same cube slot, so it really is a conversation of one versus the other.
I would be more likely to add this card to my deck than Brynhilder, but I am also not the kind of person that really values the haste mode of Brynhilder.
Sure, which I do, but I'm not going to pretend that Brynhilder's been the best red card, but I do think the modes matter on that card.
Oh, yeah, I think it is good. It's just not the kind of card I'm going to play. Sure. I'm just more likely to play this kind of card.
I mean, it does. This whole thing does hinge on, like, you want Ghost Spider at some point in the game.
I think so, yeah. I think this one, I think you do want to eventually get some Jeskai mana in your deck, yeah.
Yeah, if you're not going to... I think Brynhilder is, like, to me, seems quite a bit stronger if you have no chance of, like, flipping.
Well,
this card.
You only get one turn. You only get one turn to cast the spell off Brynhilder, right? Because, I mean, assuming you don't cast it the first turn. Like, if you just play it on 2, you only really have the next turn or next... I guess you have 2 turns. So, I don't know, I don't know. Like, this one, you can kind of float it for a few turns if you want. You can sit it back and have it threatened as a blocker if you need it. Not that that's something you're necessarily interested in doing in red. I would have liked to have seen the front side pushed a little bit more on this one, but I also just don't think Brynhilder is very good.
This will be like maybe a taunt card, try the new card, assuming the art isn't Gwen fucking Stacy on Arena or whatever. But worth noting too, there's like a very minor synergy if you exile like a land with Gwen Stacy and then transform it and then play that land from exile, the Ghost Spider gets bigger. So that's kind of the joke there. But like you said, Ghost Spider's not getting any bigger in our cube. It's basically just a 4/4 or 5/5 kind of hasty dragon. So it's not even like the most impressive thing to turn it into. But just like the Peter Parker, it's like, okay, there's something else I can do on top of this little utility guy. And that might be enough to like push it. I do like getting more big splashy stuff in the cube when like it's on the buyout of a cheap thing that's doing something useful. So I don't know. This might be like I really have to see how these sorts of things play out in the retail limited format for sure. Like, how often are you transforming them and stuff like that? Or how often are you actually just straight up playing it on the back half? I have no idea. It's hard to judge some of these MDFCs from this set. So
yeah, this is the kind of card that also could potentially get better down the road as they print more of these red impulse draw effects, because the more of those you have in your environment, the more likely it is that this randomly turns into really, really gigantic and also can value engine on the backside. Yeah.
Speaking of which, the other red card here is Heroes Hangout. It's a single red mana for a sorcery. This is cool. I like this.
So good.
Okay, I'm glad to hear you say that, because this caught a lot of buzz when it was revealed. It's a sorcery. Choose one. Exile the top 2 cards of your library. Choose one of them until the end of your next turn. You may play that card. So you have to lock in which one you're going to play, and you have until the end of the next turn to play it. And then not throwaway text, but relevant. The other mode is 1 or 2 target creatures each get +1/+0 and gain first strike until end of turn. Now, I'm assuming you use that second mode like 10% of the time compared to the first mode or whatever, but maybe even less than that. But it is extra functionality on what's essentially like, I was trying to figure out what's the best cantrip to compare this to, and I think it's in line with some of the weaker cantrips like Sleight of Hand and Op, because you do basically just lock in the card that you're going to play. Like, you don't get until the end of the next turn to choose.
That would have been so sweet if it just exiled. You could cast one of them until like. If you
I
could
think
just,
that would be straight up crazy.
Yeah, that would be excellent. That would be like that Tezzeret's Ambition card, right?
I just want all these red impulse effects to be like that. I love that effect.
Why do you think this is so good? Because I would compare it to like sleight of hand with the 10%er chance of having the second mode here, the first strike +1/+0 mode.
In an aggressive deck, I think an aggressive red deck, if your red creatures lean towards prowess, which ours do, I just think that this is bonkers. When you're like top decking later in the game, like topping this, like yeah, it could have been a different card, but now for like just 1 mana in your deck full of insanely cheap cards, you effectively got to look at 2 cards instead of 1 for the cost of 1 mana. It triggers your prowess stuff. If you cast this and you target prowess creatures, they effectively get +2/+0 in first strike. Gruul decks are going to love this card because, like, looking at multiple cards for really cheap is great when you have additional mana sources, and big tramplers getting first strike is just going to make them impossible to block and also, like, impossible to survive. I just think it's a really strong package. It's unassuming and simple.
Do you think you're using the second mode like more than the 10%er that I threw on it?
I think that there are going to be times where you top deck this card and it's the card that kills your opponent, or at the very least forces them to basically sacrifice their entire board to like see one more card.
Yeah, this card reads like it's just 2 damage, right? You read it as like it gives 2 creatures +1/+0, but that's not the way creature sizing works in Magic, right? That's not the way, especially with first strike. Like this is gonna be threatening a bunch of damage because now your opponent's 3. Let's just say a 3/3, right? You've got 2 2/2s in play. Like that card, you were doing 0 damage, and now you are threatening 6 damage, or your opponent can like give up a card. They can give up their 3/3 for essentially 1 mana, and you still push 3 damage. And that's like kind of a in a vacuum example. But this is going to open up a bunch of attacks, especially given that, you know, when you play this on like a Monastery Swift Spear, you're suddenly swinging with a 3/3 first strike. It's no longer reasonable to block it. The card specifically that jumps to mind for me is Emberheart Challenger, because we can now play Emberheart Challenge. We use our Emberheart Challenger with this. We give it first strike, and we still get to look at a card. So like we're kind of getting a little extra value off of that. Cards like Generous Plunderer are already giant threats, and when they have first strike, they become even more miserable to block. There's just the Rabble Masters are really good targets with this this plus, because now that makes them incredibly hard to block, and they're gigantic. So I think there's a lot of flexibility here, and yeah, maybe it only comes up. I would say probably more than 10%. I'm going to go as high as like 15-20%. But I think the difference is that when that mode is good, it's going to be like win the game good. And I think when your sleight of hand functionally has the upside of like kill your opponent or like deal 8 damage to your opponent or something, that's really meaningful upside.
Yeah, I don't want to oversell it, but I think this card is a pretty excellent little package of value for 1 mana. Not to mention the fact that, and I'm probably a little higher on it than, and I don't mean higher on it than I should be, like I'm misevaluating the card, because I don't think that I am, but I'm even higher on it than I probably would be, simply because like it, as a cube curator, it makes me really happy when a color gets an extremely unique effect for that color that still feels color pie appropriate and is different than any other card in terms of its functionality, like in the entire section, right? It's one of the reasons I was so pleased that we got like Green Sun Zenith, right? That's a very green effect, but there's no other green card like it, and this has that kind of flavor to me. I'm gonna like looking at this in the list.
Yeah, I think between this and Swiftspear's teaching, also getting more of these like very cheap, efficient cantrips in red that also push damage. First of all, is very red in flavor. But secondly, it's nice because it means that you are less obligated to go into blue to maximize your prowess creatures. Because if you put this and you put Swiftspears in your deck, suddenly like maybe you can play a red-black prowess deck, right? Maybe we can make the prowess shell work because we have a couple of cantrips natively in color. And I think that is not necessarily true previous to this. I think you kind of needed to go blue to maximize the prowess creatures. And I think blue will probably still be the best home for that. It's still the home we're going to support the most. But maybe we could see like Monastery Swiftspear be less embarrassing in non-red, mono-red/red-blue decks.
This is a good card design example. Just kind of demonstrating like that second effect. You would never play the card if that was just what it did, but an easy way to make a niche effect more playable is to tack it on to something that's alternatively a 1-mana cantrip, right? Like if you ever wanted to take something really kind of just weak, but you want it in the set, and you could just throw it on a cantrip. You wouldn't want to do that with every single card. You wouldn't want every single card to cantrip, but as an alternative. But it's a way to get effects into cubes or into environments by making the ceiling the floor just like very, very high.
Yeah, and I think on the flip side, like, I don't necessarily think I would be particularly excited about this card with just the impulse draw.
Yeah,
I would still probably be like, yeah, we should try this out because it's a cheap, efficient card. But getting the ceiling raiser of having this very niche, good effect is really nice. And then one last thing is I think this is a really cool card because this is an example of how environment differences can impact things, because when we talk about this in the Peasant review, despite having an uncommon symbol on it, I'm raving about it here in our mainline environment, and I'm gonna kind of not poo-poo it, but I'm also not gonna be particularly excited about it in our Peasant review.
Sure. All right, let's move into green here, where it looks like we've got a decent amount to talk about. First is a nice little 2-drop, Miles Morales, aka Spider-Man, if you didn't know. 1 in a green for a 1/2 legendary human citizen hero. When Miles Morales enters, put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 creatures, and then, yes, this is an MDFC. The transform/casting cost is 3 red, green, white, so 6 mana total, Naya colors for a 4/3 with first strike and haste, and you can pay 2 mana to put a +1/+1 counter on it and give it hexproof until end of turn. It also becomes colorless, I guess, because it's camouflage is the joke. And then whenever you attack with anything, you double the number of counters of each kind of counter on each spider and legendary creature you control. Whatever you can, it's a hasty first strike creature that can pick up counters. I guess you could just spam counters on it too for 2 mana over and over, and also very hard to kill. So. Again,
and I'm gonna say they actually kind of nailed this mythic cycle because they're all pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, again, the back halves are not cards you would play on your own, but the front halves are like pretty decent little 2-drops and cheap creatures. So, I mean, Miles Morales, if you pull off everything that it's saying here, it's 3/4 stats for 2 mana, which is amazing. The thing is, as a 2-drop, the only way you get maximum power out of it is if you've had a 1-drop to put another counter on, because it's like Rishkar Pima Renegade, you know, if you remember that card. So you have to have 2 creatures in play to get the full 3/4 stats. Otherwise, this is just a 2/3, like a 1/2 that puts a counter on itself. So you really want another creature in play before you play Miles Morales, which makes it kind of a skeptical 2-drop. Even if you have a mana dork, like putting a +1 counter on your Birds of Paradise isn't that impressive. But the back half's kind of cool. I mean, it's kind of like if you pay 6 mana, it's kind of exposed for a turn. If you ever have extra mana up, it's basically impossible to kill because you just give it hexproof for 2 mana. And then, of course, you can spam that. And then it attacks, it gets even bigger. So it starts off as a 6 mana 4/3, but actually, you know what? If Miles puts a counter on itself and then you transform this and then it attacks,
it
doubles the count. It's a 6/5 first striker. So okay. If you this one you want to transform, you don't necessarily want to just run it out for 6 mana and pass the turn. You want to transform, attack with anything, and then have a 6/5 first striker attacking.
However, if you have like 8 mana, which is not a given, like that's a ton of mana. It's a ridiculous amount of mana, but green can do it.
Yeah.
Like
if you ever have the 2 extra mana up. That's a beater for sure, which it's in Naya colors. You can often get a lot of mana in Naya colors. Again, a lot of power concentrated in the front half here, and especially asking you to curve out in a particular way, with the back half being not irrelevant, like totally justifiable big creature on the back as well.
Man, Watsy is taxing the crud out of our Mythic Wild cards here. I think we need to test this. This card, I like this. This is cool. The front side is just kind of fine, but like between fine and good, right? Like 3/4 for 2 is a pretty great stat line. And then the backside is expensive, but I mean, if we untap with it or if we have enough mana to activate it once, it's kind of unkillable. In the color with Tyvar Stand, I mean, so like it is like once you get all of that going, it's just kind of actually unkillable.
Yeah. You want to go Paul Patch Recruit into Miles Morales and just start beating down in green. That's what you want to do.
Yeah. This pairs really well with red creatures too. This is actually a good Naya card. This pairs well with red and white creatures.
Yeah, pairs well with other spiders too. Double the number of counters on all your other spiders.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I like this.
Yeah. If it was just the front half, I'd still think it's a pretty strong card. So that leads me to believe that I really want to play this because the back half is not nothing here.
Yeah, I think it would be relegated to peasant territory with just the front side. I do think the backside here is important in giving us some scalability and like upside into the mid to late game.
Speaking of scalability.
I got you, fam.
Yeah, thanks for that segue. I actually really like this card. So Wizard Connors' Curse, not Connor's Curse, but Connors' Curse. They could have done something. That's a very annoying name. 2 green for a 5/5 trample. That's not bad. That's not a bad start in place. It's a legendary
Bristleblood farmer stats.
Wizard villain. Yeah, Bristleblood farmer there. I think this is really cool. So when Wizard Connors' Curse enters, up to 1 other target creature loses all abilities and becomes a green lizard creature with base power and toughness 4. And as I pointed out to Teld, that does not say until Wizard leaves the battlefield. It is just permanently a 4/4 with no abilities. So you could theoretically nerf an opponent's giant creature or just turn one of your dudes into a permanent 4/4. And if Wizard leaves the battlefield, you've still got the 4/4. It doesn't have any abilities, so you're nerfing trample or whatever on it. But this is theoretically adding like 7 to 8 points of stats to the board. And if you had a creature that was like composed of counters or had +1/+1 counters on it, like a Kyrian Dryad or something like that, that's going to be bigger than a 4/4 because it'll keep its counters. And I don't know how often you're going to nerf an opponent's creature, but making their creature lose abilities is probably not irrelevant either. And this is bigger than the creature you're going to give them. So this could like snipe a flyer out of the air.
Enduring curiosity, dork.
Yeah. I really like this card. And it's really carried off of 4 mana 5/5 trample. But there's a lot of versatility to the ability. If this was until Lizard left the battlefield, I would probably care a little less and still think it's fine. But the fact that that's just a permanent buff/debuff makes me really like what's going on here.
Yeah, the downside of getting completely blown out when it leaves the battlefield would probably make me very skeptical, even though that's more of a player skill issue. But yeah, the fact that this is permanent, I really like this card. I want to see more of this. This is like, it's big, it's dumb, it makes other things big and dumb. It doesn't feel like it's outside the realm of like stat lines or anything like that. It's just like, it's on the upper end for sure, but it doesn't feel egregious. It's also oddly good into green mirrors, right? Where you can hit your opponent. Specifically, the card that comes to mind is a Gonosaurus Rex. Just gets completely wrecked by this card.
Yeah, this is a very cool package of stats and effect, and not an effect you really see. I mean, you see things that pump other things. I have a Wolfeater Silverheart here as a comparison, but like basically just modifying a stat line like a blue card would is very weird.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, this card gets really crazy with cards that care about +1 counters. Specifically, the cards that jump out to mind are Voracious Hydra and Goose Mother. Goose Mother, I guess,
any
with
sort of
flying, which is kind of annoying.
With counters.
Yeah, but 0/0s with counters, and specifically the if you pull it off, the Hydra one is particularly funny because you can double the +1 counters on it the turn you play it, and then just add even more stats to it, and just make it ridiculous. However, I will say, losing all abilities, one thing to remember is that Voracious Hydra, for example, has trample, Goose Mother has flying. They would lose those. So yeah, I think the play pattern you're aiming for this is like to turn your Llanowar Elf into a 4/4 after you no longer need the mana.
Yeah, or some token, like 1/1 token you have sitting on board or something. Like Peter Parker into this, turn the 0/1 into a 4/4 without spending any additional mana seems really strong to me. Yeah, this might be in the run-in for card. Like one of the better green 4s we have, which is saying a lot with the section that has like Quest and Beast and stuff like that. Radagast potentially as well. Rest of Green is stuff that you added. I'm gonna break your heart on Sandman, but I do want you to talk about the card.
Yeah, I'm not super in love with this one, but I did think it was worth talking about. So it's Sandman, Shifting Scoundrel, 1 green. Its power and toughness are equal to the number of lands you control. Can't be blocked by power creatures with power 2 or less. And for 3 green, you return this card and target land card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. And so this card kind of baseline, I guess, is probably going to be like 2/2, 3/3, 4/4, somewhere in there. But it scales up into the game, which is kind of cool. The not being blocked by powers 2 or less is very relevant. There's a ton of 1/1 tokens floating around that this is actually demand your opponent block it with a real creature. And then the activate ability is really expensive, like really, really expensive. But first of all, green has the ability to make a lot of mana. It makes itself easier to cast on subsequent hits if you're able to put lands in your graveyard, which was easier with fetch lands in even though we no longer have those. But also, I just wanted to point out that this is like, if you're looking for cards that, especially maybe in a slightly lower power environment, that really were good into opposing control decks, this is the kind of card that you can just keep putting this back on the table as your opponent tries to deal with it. Unless they have an Able to Scream or Fresh Start, they're really going to have trouble getting this off the table permanently.
The one thing that kills this for me is that you have to target a land in your graveyard to activate the ability. You can't.
Oh, dang it.
It must.
Okay, never mind.
Yep, there's the heartbreak that I was quote unquote hoping for. Yeah, it has to target a land in your graveyard in order to return this to the battlefield.
Yeah, okay, I missed that. Yeah.
Otherwise, it would just be like you would just always be able to spend 5 mana to get like a 5/5 or 6/6, and which they know that restriction. They know exactly what they were doing with this design. But yeah, without fetches, triomes don't cycle enough, and they're expensive enough that's just not enough to rely on that activated ability. This is a sand elemental villain, though.
You are right. You broke my heart.
Yeah, right. I know. Next one, maybe I can break your heart again. No,
I don't like
really.
this card, but I know this was one that people were talking about. So this is Web of Life and Destiny. It is 6 green for an enchantment with Convoke. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you'll get the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a creature card from among them onto the battlefield and put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. This is a weird card. Like you mentioned, there's some weird design tension here in that green has mana dorks, so they already tap for mana, and you want small creatures and a lot of small creatures so that you can convoke this out, but then you want to have big, good targets to go get. I think the more cards like Blade Splicer that you're running that are creatures that perform multiple bodies that are also like reasonable to hit off of this, the better it's going to get. But this is more of a cool commander bait card than anything else, I think.
Mm-hmm. What cost do you want to get this down before you're happy to play it? 4 or 5?
4? Yeah, I was going to say 4 or 5. Yeah.
Because it triggers on combat, so theoretically you get a creature the turn it comes down, and then hopefully you're just spiking a creature every turn. But like some turns you're going to hit a small thing. Maybe you have a couple big targets. Yeah, I mean, this is a very interesting. It looks like the art looks like every single green enchantment Chris and I tried in the unrestricted cube for like the first 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah, this reads like a lot of previously bad cards.
Yeah, it's a very cool design, very interesting. I think the only use of Convoke in the set as well, which is notable for the purposes of web slinging. If tapping your creatures down for web slinging is relevant.
Okay, and the last one, I do actually think this card is good, but holy moly, is it annoying.
There's two more, actually. There's another one underneath that.
Oh, yeah, two more.
Two bonus sheet cards here.
So this is Arachnogenesis. So this is 2 and a green for an instant. Create X 1/2 green spider creature tokens with reach, where X is the number of creatures attacking you. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn by non-spider creatures. So this is like the green Settle the Wreckage. Yeah. So you just, you dump a handful of spiders into play, and then you get to determine your blocks how you want them. This card's really good against Lingering Souls, really good against like Malcolm and all the random cheap, 1 toughness blue flyers. It's really good against the white token decks. Not so good against decks trying to attack you with like 1 or 2 very large creatures or like mid-range creatures. So it's got kind of that polar energy if you want. But this is a pretty unique green effect, and I will say a uniquely annoying one that I don't actually want to run, but I did want to mention it because it is powerful.
We could add so many Settle the Wreckage variants with this set. Comeuppance, Arachnogenesis. You just never attack with more than 1 creature. Also, I just want to point out, and I'm gonna try to compose myself for the peasant review when we actually talk about the card, but this character is my favorite Spider-Man character of all time, Spiders-Man. The suit that is just made up of a bunch of spiders. Spiders-Man. Anyway, Silkguard. You've got Silkguard on here too. I do think this one is probably like we could consider it. I don't think Arachnogenesis is in that realm.
No, I think this is probably the best of the 3 cards or 4 cards that I posted. So Silkguard is green and an X for an instant. Put a +1 counter on each of up to X target creatures you control. Auras, equipment, and modified creatures you control gain hexproof until end of turn. I did just notice this doesn't give indestructible, which does lower me on it slightly. But this has kind of got Tyvar Stand energy where it's like protection spell, modal fireball kind of card. Oh wait, it's not a fireball because it's each of up to X. Okay, I like this a lot less. I do think this card's fine still after all of that. But I will admit, when I read it, I immediately just kind of inserted that it was a modal fireball that gave indestructible because I've played Tyvar Stand to the point that my brain is rotted.
You can put maximum 1+1 counter on each thing you target. You can pump up X up to the number of creatures you control, but they get 1 counter each.
Yeah, I still think this card's okay. There's a lot of +1 counters floating around in green these days. This gives kind of like more of a board pump at instant speed rather than a fireball, which is less useful generally, but still kind of okay. If you've got a piece of equipment or counters just floating around, it's got, it could just be like a Tyvar stand type card. I don't know how much room we have for these style of effects in green, especially because they're really tilting to play against, and Tyvar stand is clear best in class for that. So this is definitely not as good as that, but if you're looking for like maybe at the 450, if we're looking for a density effect, this could be a consideration.
The better comparison is probably Snakeskin Veil. This is like 2 mana for a Snakeskin Veil, but you can pump it up to pump other creatures. Also, you can cast it for X = 0 and not put any counters on it if you just need to like protect a modified creature from a removal spell or something like that. Also, they put Silk on the Silk. This is what I was talking about, where they clearly had the art and then they wanted to match something to the art. The character is Silk and they're like, Scryfall search Silk. Oh, Silk Guard. We'll reprint that one. Actually, it does work out that modified is back though in blue-white. A little bit awkward.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah, I'm surprised we didn't get Silk Wrap.
Silk Wrap. There's such a whatever card in 2020, whatever year we're in.
Yeah, but can you imagine? I'm sure surely in the analogs of Spider-Man, there's Silk holding a boombox somewhere.
Probably Radio Raheem as the anyway. There's one for all the Spike Lee fans out there. Okay, the gold cards are kind of bangers. There's a lot of really powerful gold cards we could talk about. The first one, though,
cards to talk about.
Yeah, the gold section's a lot larger than I thought it would be for a set that only has 5 archetypes, but. The first one is one of the more niche ones. This is one that we're probably not going to play, but I thought the power was there enough to talk about it. It's Spider-Man 2099. I assume that's Spider-Man from the year 2099 and not the 2099 iteration of Spider-Man. But there have been about 2,000 other Spider-Mans.
Well, everyone knows that the original Spider-Man was Jesus. Right, so that was Spider-Man 1. And then we've got a new one every single year. Spider-Jesus, yeah.
So it is the year 2099, though.
Yes, correct.
I would not be, Chris, you say that in jest, but I would not be surprised if that's the plot of a comic, because if you've ever followed, like, what comic plots look like, they are completely unhinged.
Yeah, I'm 100% sure.
There's a Marvel Snap Spider-Man 29, isn't there? 2099?
Yeah, it's a move. I think it's a move card.
I assume it's a Spider-Man. Okay, so the card is blue-red for a 2/3 legendary Spider-Human here. No, nobody cares. Nobody gives a shit about it.
Oh, and the art is blue and red. That's why it's a blue-red card.
Hey! You can't cast Spider-Man 2099 during your first, second, or third turns of the game. It has double strike and vigilance, so you can't cast it till turn 4, but it is a 2-mana 2/3 double strike vigilance, which is a hell of a stat line / abilities. At the beginning of your end step, if you've played a land or cast a spell this turn from anywhere other than your hand, Spider-Man 2099 deals damage equal to its power to any target. Oh, I didn't even realize this was any target. I thought
this is like straight up bolts things, huh? Or shocks things.
So, hoops, right? First off, you can't cast this till turn 4, though. In some ways that's like a benefit because you could hold up your counterspell the turn you play this. Second, you have to figure out how to cast stuff from spells other than your hand. And they had the decency to not make this like specifically cast from exile. You can cast from anywhere other than your hand. So if you have a Future Sight on board or you have a flashback spell, or if you cast something from exile, this will shoot something for presumably 2 damage, if not more if you've pumped it. And then double strike vigilance on a 2/3 is a pretty gnarly body if you're doing anything remotely aggressive. So I think this is more cutesy than like cube worthy. It doesn't really fit into like, or is it decks specifically, like, or is it decks are about pushing damage and prowess and stuff like that? It's not. This is a little bit like adjacent to that, I would say. But I wanted to mention it because there's clearly power here, especially if you're doing some sort of cheaty thing where you can flash this on an opponent's turn or Ether Violet in to actually get around that restriction of when you can cast it. So cool card. I don't really think it makes our cube, but I think we should mention it. I think we should mention it.
Very cool card. I also want to say that I actually like this as I know we're not a commander channel, but I like this as a commander design because it doesn't follow the golden rule of broken commanders, which is like self-generates infinite value and or infinite mana. Yeah, it's also like a card that you have to build around to make it a win condition in Commander. So I actually I might actually make a Commander deck with this because this is sweet. This is the kind of thing I like to do, which is like board control and, hoops to jump through and stuff like that without infinite reward. So yeah, I really like this card just over top to bottom. I think this is a really sweet design. Power level is like, I think there's a lot of hoops you have to jump through even after you get it in play. Like, I think in a lot of cubes, the shock will be fine, but I think you are looking for ways to scale this up, right? Whether that be equipment or counters or, whatever. Because the more you're able to scale this up, the more powerful it's going to become, which is awesome.
So very cool. It probably requires some sort of like design considerations and cube equity considerations to like make sure you have the density of things to actually make it work. Which we almost certainly don't, but it is very cool if you get to do that.
I'm almost a little surprised they had the restraint to not slap prowess on this. I'm actually really proud of
this. Would be insane with prowess. This card would be insane if it didn't have the restriction on it, right? If it was just 2 mana.
Oh yeah, this card goes completely nuts with Monstrous Rage, which of course that's Monstrous Rage being broken. But combat tricks in general seem like they're really strong with this to take advantage of the double strike and the attack trigger. Man, banger design.
Monstrous
great
Rage that you cast from exile.
Yeah.
Or Inti like always gives you a card from exile and then also pumps this. That would be insane.
Oh yeah.
So.
Oh yeah. This is
I actually want Chris to read the next one. Sorry, Chris, I haven't thrown too many to you to read this time, but I think this is
quite okay.
I think this might be the type of card that you want because of how much you really wanted to test out Thalia Heretic Cathar. Spider Woman, Stunning Savior.
Stunning Savior. I think this card's sweet. This is 1 in a hybrid Azorius mana for a 2/2 flyer. And artifacts and creatures your opponents control enter tapped. I think this is I honestly think this is like insane.
We got insane. We got insane on it. It's really good.
It's incredibly disruptive. The fact that it hits artifacts too is going to be relevant. We don't play a lot of mana rocks, but obviously, like people who play environments with fast mana that also include effects that like make mana sources come in tapped, like that can be very disruptive. You can't do your like make your mana rock effectively cost 1 mana in a turn type stuff. The thing that annoys me about this card is that it's not mono white. Like it is obviously like objectively stronger that it's not mono white, but I don't see what business a card that you can put in a mono blue deck has doing this effect. If we were to play this, and I really want us to play this, I would include it and think of it as a white card. That will obviously also end up in blue decks. It pisses me off that you can play this in blue decks. Like the white player should be able to get this, but it's a good card.
I'm not inspired by this card, but I think this is one of the most eminently cubable cards in the entire set. Like this is such an easy include with the hybrid mana, making it way more flexible than a white or a blue card. 2/2 flyer isn't primo for 2 mana at all these days. It's kind of maybe even slightly below rate for what we would expect out of a rare, probably closer to on rate. But the effect is great. The cost is great. The effect just very, very disruptive. Super, super sweet card, even if it's also incredibly boring.
Yeah, they were very generous with this card without going overboard, and I think it lends itself to being just a very sweet design. Also, she has 6 fingers. She might have 6 fingers. I have no idea. That might be her wrist, actually.
I only see 4.
You only see 4? Okay.
Oh wait,
no, she totally does. She has 6 fingers.
I can't tell if it's her wrist or a 6 finger. Anyway, whatever.
Clearly AI.
Oh, AI. This must have been
that's
no, you're right.
That's
what. Yeah, you're right.
I was looking at a tiny image.
Yeah, no, that's the wrist. Yeah.
I was just scrolling ahead, and like all the next couple cards are also named Spider-Man, but whatever. Blue Black Symbiote Spider-Man. So I was excited. I was more excited about this when this was one of the first spoilers, and I was like, oh, the rest of the set's so much more powerful than this, but still a cool card. It's 2 blue-black hybrid, Dimir hybrid, so 3 mana total, for a 2/4 legendary. Whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, look at that many cards from the top of your library. Put one of them into your hand, the rest into your graveyard. So as is, if this connects, you look at the top 2, you get 1 into your hand, you put 1 in the graveyard. So that's kind of cool. It has an activated ability from the graveyard, which a lot of the symbiotes in this set do that. It costs the same as its mana cost, so it's 2/ plus Dimir hybrid, 3 mana total. Exile Symbiote Spider-Man from your graveyard, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. It gains this card's other abilities, and you can only do that at sorcery speed. And again, that's just a perpetual thing like Lizard Connor's is Curse. It just permanently gains the ability that Symbiote Spider-Man has. So synthesize, 3 mana 2/4 that draws you a card essentially with some selection if it hits your opponent. If it ends up in your graveyard, you can pump one of your other creatures with a counter and give that ability to that creature, which hopefully you're putting that on something evasive or something with flying, and then it becomes Thief of Sanity, right? So I don't know how often the base card is getting in for damage unless you're like a really good control and or tempo deck, but bestowing that ability essentially to something evasive, it seems really good. You get an Ophidian with an extra +1/+1 counter, and you used a card from your graveyard to do that rather than like cast an actual spell. So overall, very cool. Hybrid makes it flexible. Don't know that our Dimir decks want this necessarily, but I do think it's strong enough to consider.
Yeah, I think the best thing about this card is actually the 4-butt, because usually these cards are very attack-oriented.
Squishy. Yeah, they're squishy creatures, like Thief of Sanity is a 2/2 for 3.
You're probably having to spend 2 to 3 mana to kill this on average, so, or like trade some amount of resources, and sometimes it's just going to like brick your opponent. And then when you're in the control matchups, it's pretty good. This card seems terrible against green decks, for what it's worth. Like, it isn't big enough to block green creatures, and it isn't going to get through for damage. But against other control-y or aggressive decks, against the the other ends of the spectrum, it does seem pretty decent. I don't think this one, compared to the last one, I don't think this one is the kind of effect and rank that are so important and powerful in Cube that I want to run it, but I think this is okay.
Yeah, my instinct, and obviously there are different cards, and this is hybrid, so there are several considerations at play, but I think if you're playing a deck that can only cast it off of blue mana, my instinct is that like the extra point of power on Sphalan probably makes Sphalan a slightly stronger card. But yeah, the exile from the graveyard ability is interesting.
Sphalan also doesn't have to connect.
No, Sphalan doesn't have to connect, right? And I have won games off of suicide attacking with Sphalan just to draw the card and like finding the thing that I needed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's a cool card.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'd tag it. Interesting, cool. For us, I don't know, in a section that has like Scarab God and Baleful Strix, I don't know necessarily.
I think this is awesome for lower power synergy environments. I think those are becoming. I do think those are becoming a more important consideration for Cube Talk, because I think as Magic has spiraled out of control in power, we're seeing a lot more these days on our server. Very lower power weird cubes that people are cooking up. Not always lower power. Sometimes they're fluttered cubes that are completely insane. But like that's kind of his space. But we are seeing a lot of lower power environments where this kind of card could shine. So
what do you think in mono black, like, or not mono black necessarily, but black aggro or something like that? Like,
I mean, how does it stack up the Preacher?
Worse than Carsey Revenant, worse than
I'm not saying because you wouldn't run it over any of the black 3s, but assuming like you're in a black aggro deck, you see this card in a pack that doesn't have those other things. Like
in a lower power cube, I think it's probably fine. I think. Obviously, I'm not saying like this interacts with ninjutsu in any way, because it obviously doesn't. But if you're doing like a blue-black, like quote-unquote ninjas, like mid-rangey blue-black, trying to connect with creature-style tempo deck, I think it's an interesting card that will play in fun ways if it's power level appropriate for your cube. I just think it's a little bit below the bar for us relative to our other options.
Yeah, I think if you're playing this, you ideally want to have a way to either put it into the graveyard off of mill/discard, or you want to have a way to give it evasion via other means, or make its stats bigger or whatever. I think the baseline on this card is just not quite good enough as a saboteur, but I think it's a cool card. So yeah.
Ooh, you put it in the same deck as Carsey Revenant, and then you make the same creature flying lifelink Death Touch.
No matter which one dies, you either put this thing on Carsey or you put Carsey's ability on this.
Yeah, there you go, broke it.
All right, we got it.
For what it's worth, Symbiote Spider-Man is my favorite Spider-Man.
Symbiote Spider-Man?
Yes. Scarlet Spider.
Can I sell you on a 2-mana big thing?
Yeah, so I'm interested in Chris's take on this one because people are wowed by this card, and I mean, there's clear potential with it. So, Scarlet Spider Ben Riley, whoever God's green earth, that is. 1 green red for a 4/3 trample. So that's the card if you just have to cast it from your hand. It's a 4/3 trample for 3. It has web slinging. Is this? Oh, okay. This is the first instance of web slinging, actually. Which again, for red green, you can cast this card for that mana cost if you return a tapped creature you control to its owner's hand. So it'd be a 2 mana 4/3 trample if you have the thing to return. Except it also has ability. If Scarlet Spider was cast using web slinging, he enters with X +1/+1 counters, where X is the mana value of the return creature. So potentially a 2 mana 4/3 that comes in with anywhere from like 1 to 3 or 4 +1/+1 counters, depending on what you're able to return to your hand. And if you go immediately to Mana Dorks, which are the easiest way to do web slinging, let's say you have Land War Elves. Let's just use baseline Land War Elves. You play Land War Elves on 1. You play this on 2 using Land War Elves. This is a 5/4 trampler that put the Land War Elves back in your hand, which you might even be able to recast that turn. If you go to like Loam Speaker or Paradise Druid, this would be a 6/5, right? So just big stats. It has nothing else going on other than big stats, but you do have to do the web slinging thing to make it gigantic. Otherwise, it's just merely like big with trample.
Right.
Okay, I do want to sell that there are a little more we can be doing with this because this is, I don't want to say it's free web slinging because I don't think web slinging is ever free, but this is a pretty efficient way of sneaking Sky Fishery style effects into mainline cubes. And if you pick up value creatures, like, you want to pick up your Bone Crusher Giant, you put 3+1 counters on this, you get to restomp something.
Obviously, if you use web slinging to pick up ETB creatures, like, that's going to be great, especially if they're cheap. Obviously, you want to kind of pick up cheap things. Yeah. I was just using the Land of War Elves is the easiest, simplest example of how to get web slinging to work. I just wanted to use that as a baseline.
Sure. I do think in our environment, I think these web slinging cards that we had pegged, I think there's 2 of them, and both of them are green cards because I think the easiest way to facilitate the web slinging effect is to just use a mana dork, and then it kind of stinks if you're really leaning on the ramp, but if you can afford to either recast it so that you got the relatively efficient effect, or like you're able to take advantage of that in some way, you don't need the extra mana or whatever. I think there's a lot of upside here on both of this and the next card as well.
I think this is a cool card. It doesn't interest me, and I'm not talking about the power level. It just doesn't interest me, but it is large. I do have a little bit of a problem with the play pattern that Tim outlined. It is all in, right? Like, it is dangerous to do it, but sometimes just turn 2ing a 5/4 trampler just means that you won the game because your opponent kept a hand without a removal piece, and the game is just over.
With trample,
trample, like, you're not if you're on the play and you turn 2 this thing, realistically, unless your opponent is also playing a green deck or a deck with Death Touchers, they're not blocking this for 2 or 3 turns, right?
At which point they're pretty much dead to it.
It's unstoppable slasher there,
Yeah, so I think that's probably going to happen, and the first time it happens, the person who gets their shit kicked in is just going to be like, all right, well, that was fun, I guess. Especially since, all the 3 damage cheap, red removal pieces won't interact with it at that point either. But yeah, I mean, if there's interest in testing this card, we should test it. We have a ton of Gruul options available, and this one doesn't excite me that much. But I think it is a strong card. It's just not a super interesting card.
Yeah, no, it's just a giant.
There's probably some interesting stuff we can do with web slinging that is not apparent right now that makes me want to test it. Like the secret of digging up I can web sling my Kamano Faces Kakazan back to my hand and get to replay the front half or something like that. I don't know, stuff just. That was just a random example, but you get the point.
Yeah. I do think you have to work a little harder for these effects in this style.
Absolutely.
But I think the base on this card being just it's not great for a gold card 3-drop, but it's also just kind of fine. It's probably going to be massive most of the time. So. Yeah.
Okay, that brings us to the other web slinger, which is Silk. Hey, it's the thing from Silk Guard. Silk Web Weaver is 2 green white for a 3/5. Whenever you cast a creature spell, you make a 1/1 green and white human citizen token, and it has web slinging for 1 green white, so 3 mana web sling in there, and also an activated ability of 5 mana, 3 green white to give all of your creatures +2/+2 and vigilance until end of turn, which is kind of gnarly. So, people did not play the OTJ Savala. Granted, the upside on that card was that it just tapped for a bunch of mana this one actually has an activated ability that pumps your whole board. And again, I mean, there's the question of web sling. Like, obviously, if you can get a Thraben Inspector through and then bounce that back to your hand to put this on board for 3 mana, you're going to feel like a god. How often does that happen without mana dorks and with little white value creatures? No idea. But first off, if you just have to cast this for 4 mana, it's not even that embarrassing. And then if you do get to kind of like do the things that are advertised on this card, it could be a really good role player for green-white, which doesn't have that many interesting cards to begin with.
Yeah, I think there's 2 things I really like about this. This is the other side of web slinging is like, on the last one, it was kind of a cost, but it's easier to do in green. In this one, we actually get rewarded for picking up our mana dorks, right? Because when we replay our mana dork, which we want to do, we get to make a dude, and then the mana that we're making off the mana dork lets us pump our whole team so that we can give them +2/+2 in vigilance, which, the synergy here between like doing the thing and enabling the thing, this is a very, very much a modern Magic design. It makes you a big board pretty reliably, and then it also pumps your giant board if you already had one, or if it made a board for you. This is an army in a can, and the activate ability here is so much better than Sylvala. Like, this is a card you actually have to be scared of.
And again, 5 toughness pulling a lot of weight here. Ropeline Attendant Text, which I think is probably the best stuff you can do in Selesnya, is just tacking on free dudes to the other dudes you're already playing. It's kind of exactly what Selesnya wants to play out like. So I think this might be... It might be a hit for Selesnya. It's kind of hard to say with Selesnya because a lot of their gold cards just never... The color pair just doesn't excite people or pan out that much. But, I mean, this does quintessentially Selesnya things, so...
It does. It reminds me a little bit of the 2/2 3-drop with Training. Do you guys remember that guy? Who we played for a while?
I think, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. But, I mean, it does cost 1 more mana, but, like, obviously it's so much larger, which I think is a really big deal, because the problem with that card was that it just, like, died to shock.
It was a 2/2, yeah. So, and sometimes this doesn't cost more mana. Sometimes this is 3 mana.
Sometimes it's 3 mana, yep.
Yeah, and we're always on the hunt for good green-white cards.
Okay, yeah, I see. You're doing great. It's another segue for us. So, first off, Kraven the Hunter, I just want to say, like, if you're going to have a party, a BYOB party, like, you want to invite Kraven the Hunter, because check out that 6-pack. Actually, it's like an 18-pack or something.
Also, parties are more fun with large knives. Everyone knows that.
Yes. In my little comment down here, which I'm going to say out loud, Kraven the Hunter, with abs like that, I'd be Kraven the Hunter too.
Oh my god, dude.
Anyway, I'm done with...
Stop it. If he has any more children, he's going to grow too powerful.
I know.
I'm done with Kraven the Hunter jokes.
I feel like Vegeta right now, just like looking through my little eyepiece.
Okay, so Kraven the Hunter... you know what? I should have added Morbius to this list just so we could say the thing, because Kraven doesn't have the thing, but whatever. 1 black-green for a 4/3 with Trample, Human Warrior Villain. Whenever a creature an opponent controls with the greatest power among their creatures dies, draw a card and put a +1/+1 counter on Kraven. So the flavor here actually got on point, being Kraven wants to hunt the biggest things out there, wants to kill the biggest game. So kill the biggest thing on your opponent's side of the board, draw a card, put a +1/+1 counter. Obviously, 3 mana 4/3 Trample is not the worst thing in the world, but it will mean that it dies to a lot of removal. That's cheaper than it, and you kind of have to do extra work even once this is on battlefield. This is another one I thought was actually really cool. I like the design. I like the flavor. It requires probably a little bit too much work, or a very specific kind of like Jundi removal heavy shell to really get going.
Mm-hmm.
They've explored this theme on a number of cards in green-black, where it cares about you killing your opponents, like Shevel, Bane of Monsters.
There was
Anybody remembers that one?
Yeah, there was the wolf from Kaldheim.
The
that
wolf
got
thing.
Bigger. Yeah,
which was a cool design. But yeah, this is clearly one of those Golgari cards with like an implied red symbol on it.
Mm-hmm. Also feels like, I mean, it works in 1v1, but feels commandery, because like if you can snipe creatures off multiple opponents' boards, it gets really big and you draw multiple cards and stuff like that. So
yeah, this is not a green card or a Golgari card. This is a black card with an extra green symbol text. To your point about the red.
Yeah, thing, green adds trample. So cool. Stupid sexy Flander or whatever. I really like this next card, and it's because Carnage actually is kind of a badass. So Carnage gets,
Yeah.
you know what? Fuck Spider-Man. Carnage gets a pass. This should have been a Carnage set.
Oh, yeah. Carnage is sweet. Easily my favorite Spider-Man character.
Yep.
Same, yeah.
Carnage Crimson Chaos. 2 black, red for a 4/3 trample. Symbiote villain. When Carnage enters, return target creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains this creature attacks each combat and able, and when it deals combat damage to a player, you sacrifice it. And it has Mayhem for red and black. So 2 mana Mayhem. If you're able to discard it, you get to just cast this out of your graveyard for 2 mana, which 4/3 trample for 2 mana, you're not going to complain about that. You do want to get value out of this ETB, though, right? And the idea is you want to get a 3-drop. Obviously, sometimes you'll get a 1-drop or a 2-drop, and that creature does have to like attack to its death. If it hits the opponent, you only get that 1 shot. If they have to block it, God forbid they have to block whatever you got back, that's bad shape for them because you just got that 3-drop or whatever for free. And then, add on, I got back any sort of value creature. I got back Sephiroth. I got back Lord Skid or whatever. I got back Tersa Light Shatter. I'm going high end on the 3s here. I'm going best case, kind of. Which this card's great with Tersa Light Shatter, too, because you can Mayhem it. I think there's a lot of upside to really like on this card. Even if, you only get 1 shot out of the 3-drop you get back or whatever, that seems good enough to me.
Yeah, the only pushback I have on this card in the context of our cube is that most of our best ways to enable this card are going to be located in blue. So this ends up probably kind of playing out as a Grixis card because otherwise you're stuck on Inti and is that it? Tersa. Oh, Tersa. Inti and Tersa.
Yeah, Tersa. I mean, the currency converter stuff we saw, it just pans out. There's more than you think there is that does this sort of stuff.
I do think if you're not in Grixis, you have to work a little to enable this though. But it's probably worth it, and it's also just kind of a decent enough rate for 4 mana. I don't mind playing 4 mana and getting my thing back.
You have to do work to get the busted part of this card. The 4 mana part of this card, I think, is still perfectly playable Magic the Gathering card, and a good one.
Scrapwork Mutt 2025.
Scrapwork Mutt, yeah. This card, I mean, the art is this is easily one of the best art pieces in the set. The power is there, and there's this actually super busted dream you can go for with the Mayhem. So this all adds up to yes, I want to play this card. I want to put this card in a cube, even without alternate. This might be one of the ones where the art is a downgrade.
for one of the rare cases. Yeah.
Okay, so if you guys don't mind, I have 5 to 10-ish minutes before I got to bounce. So if you guys don't mind, I would like to skip to the 3 lands, which are the last ones that I had added to kind of talk about, and then I'll have to bounce, but I'll bounce it back to Teld to talk about some of these artifacts and the last remaining gold cards. If you guys are fine with that. So.
We'll have about 5 cards after you get done. Then.
Okay, so first land is actually pretty simple. It's Multiversal Passage. This is a rare land that when it enters, you choose a basic land type. It is the basic land type. And then you may have it come in untapped if you pay 2 mana. So it's kind of like a single color shock land where you get to pick the color that it lands on. Or if you want to rephrase it a different way, it's like those Uncharted Haven cards we get in limited sets that come in, choose a color, taps for that color. But you have the option to pay, shock yourself to have it come in untapped. And if it matters, it does pick up the land type. So if your deck cares about swamps or mountains or whatever, forests, you have Fellows or whatever, it does actually change its land type. So I thought this was the perfect addition to the tier 2 fetched land type things like Prismatic Vista and Fabled Passage. It's just a new addition to that kind of style of mana fixin', and pretty good because of that. This just seems like a sweet little addition to whatever mana fixin' package you have.
Yeah, nothing flashy or crazy going on here, but this is a solid addition to the tier 2 fixing available to you. I think this is a totally fine cube card. It'll find a way into our land base. I'm not sure what the cut will be, but yeah, this is an obvious include.
Mm-hmm. And then there are 2 tri-lands in the set. There's only 2. It's not a full cycle, which was kind of funny because they spoiled Oscorp Industries, and I wrote a news piece about it, and I was like, this looks like a one-off. I doubt there are going to be any other 3-color lands. And then they're like, oh, by the way, there's also Urban Retreat. And I was like, okay, it looks like it's going to be a full cycle then. And then it's actually just 2. It's just 2 3-color.
Well, we hit the 2 full blue color pairs. We hit blue's allies and blue's enemies.
Very, very cool cards here. So Oscorp Industries is a land that enters the battlefield tapped. It's a rare. If it enters from the graveyard, you lose 2 life. And the reason it says that is because it has Mayhem. So if you discard Oscorp Industries for any reason, you have until the end of the turn to play it. Something that Madness can't do, by the way. You can't Madness in lands. So this is one of the rare cases where Mayhem is actually upside over Madness. And it's a Grixis land. It taps for blue, black, red. So at base, it's just like Crumbling Necropolis, right? It's just a tri-land that enters tapped, and that's all it does. But if you have any sort of discard thing going on, or you can pitch this to the graveyard, you get to pay 2 life to play it from your graveyard, which, doesn't sound amazing, but you got to consider that's hitting your land drop without using a card from your hand, which is always valuable. So I like this. This isn't better than Xander. I don't think this is better than a Triome. It's not fetchable, whatever. But if you're doing any sort of discard thing, this is just a really cool land to add to that package of cards, while just being a tri-land that you can play out with no real repercussions other than it's tapped.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure why we needed to have damage done to us when it enters play, given that it's a tap land. Like, I think that was downside enough. But this card is cool and good, and we'll see play in some cubes, I'm sure.
You know what's funny? The fact that this doesn't have like the types like the Triomes or the Surveil lands just made me think about like how good Farseek is in 2025.
Yeah, you can't Farseek this bad boy into play.
No, you cannot. But yeah, I was just thinking about how insane
you're saying
it is.
We can't use our green card to go get our Grixis fixing?
Yeah. No, I was just thinking like, man, like Farseek holding up.
Yeah. I do like this other one quite a bit, though. I think the other of these is a good bit better. So Urban Retreat has the same enters tapped, and it makes Bant mana, so that's green, white, blue. And you can pay 2 mana to return a tapped creature you control to its owner's hand and put this card from your hand onto the battlefield, activate only as a sorcery. So 1, this doesn't cost us life. And 2, if we want to use this one's effect, we're ramping ourselves, which is pretty powerful, and potentially getting to do some cool things. I mean, one of the baselines with this is we can like play a mana dork and bounce it, right? That doesn't really help us, but if we're able to bounce things that aren't mana dorks, we can start getting some value out of this card and getting some ramp, like turn 1 Thraben Inspector, attack, bounce, then on turn 2 to ramp. This is a reasonable line. There's some things that you can do here that are a lot cooler. Of course, Skyfisher is now infecting lands. More importantly, though, I think it just is a little easier to take advantage of this in a lot of spaces, and I think not paying 2 life is pretty relevant upside.
Mm-hmm. This is a very cool land. Again, you're not playing this over Spar's headquarters if you're doing fetches and stuff like that. You're just not doing that, and you kind of have to have a plan for it. The mana dork thing is really weird on this one, right? Because you would be picking up a ramp piece to put a ramp piece into play. Though if you do that on a turn where you can like replay your mana dork, you are kind of like back into like, oh, I'm ahead on mana.
Yeah, you've just converted your land into like another mana dork essentially, or another, rampant growth or whatever.
You turn I really don't like you turn Land of War Elves into a land that's kind of like, okay, cool, I guess. You need to dream a little bit bigger with this, and there's a lot of lines you can think up where this does really powerful stuff. While also, again, just being a 3-color land, those aren't terrible. The one thing I wish they did is just like bite the bullet and put web slinging on it, because this is web slinging. It's letting you web sling a land into play, but they were like, we're just going to spell it out this time because it would be really weird to have web slinging on like this dorm room or whatever.
Yeah, I don't think we've mentioned it, but web slinging also has obvious synergy with things like vehicles and mounts that let you tap without getting into combat.
Yeah, anything you can do to get your own creatures tapped is going to enable web slinging. We'll talk about that probably more extensively in the Peasant Cube, because that's going to involve a lot more of the like object creation, pickup, like core Skyfisher part of web slinging. For the purposes of these higher rarity cards, it's mostly about just getting a bunch of big stats and good abilities in play. In Peasant, it's more about what you're picking up than what you're actually putting into play, I think. So yeah, these are cool tri-lands. I don't know if they make our cube. I don't necessarily know. It'd be a little weird to have them next to tri-lands, but we can talk about that. With that being said, I do have to bounce, so I'm gonna bounce it back to Teld to talk about the last. It looks like 5 cards, one of which is Terminate. You can spend as much time, and then if you guys want to give overall impressions, feel free to do so. I will leave you with my overall impressions, which is I don't care. I just don't care. I hate everything about the Spider-Man set except the cards themselves, and the cards designs are really cool, and I'm looking forward to whatever the arena versions of those cards are. So I was going to go more ranty on that, but since I'm in a time crunch and have to bounce, I will leave it at that. and I will pass it along to Teld to read off the remaining cards and catch you all later.
All right. So we're going to pick up with Aranya, Heart of the Spider. This is 1 red white for a 3/3 legendary creature spider human hero.
Yeah, I was wondering how you guys got through those cards so fast. I came back from the bathroom and I was like, holy shit. I figured Teld would still be talking about this blue-white equipment. But yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, so Aranya, whenever you attack, you put a +1/+1 counter on target attacking creature. And whenever a modified creature you control deals damage to a player, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. So I don't necessarily love this card, but I wanted to mention it because it's kind of a nice intersection between the attacking Boros decks and the value Boros decks, which is nice. You can get value the turn you play it if you had a 2-drop, right? You just play this, you attack, you put it on the 2-drop, it probably gets through for damage. Doesn't help you this turn, right? If you're playing it on 3, it doesn't help you with the value that turn. But on future turns, we can now set up lines where we're able to potentially get card draw off of this with our counters we're putting on and the equipment we're playing and all that sort of thing. Don't know if this quite gets there, but if we think of it as like 3 mana for like 4/4 worth of stats the turn we play it, it's not a terrible floor. And I think the ceiling on this card's pretty high.
Yeah, no, I think that this is a solid attacking card. Like, obviously, as long as it sticks, it's doing a Luminarch Aspirant impression of a kind.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about creature sizing before. You know, sometimes you're just going to play a creature and you're just going to keep making it bigger and it's just going to stay just out of manageability. If you spread the counters around, you have multiple ways of essentially seeing more cards. It seems solid to me. I don't think it's like a world beater, but it seems pretty good.
Yeah, we'll have to talk to Tim to see if he's interested in this one because he didn't really leave me any thoughts on any of these mostly because I added them at 8 o'clock this morning. But yeah, I think this card is relatively interesting. All right, so now the card we're going to talk about for 30 minutes. Bio-Organic Carapace is 2 white
I have
blue.
Nothing to say about this one. This is all you, bud.
So it's 2 white blue for an artifact equipment, and when this equipment enters, attach it to target creature you control. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card for each modified creature you control, and you can equip it for 2. So I don't really think the raw rate on this is super good. Like 4 mana for like +2/+2 and some draw is not crazy, but I will say, you do get a free equip, right? So you get to push damage the turn you play it, probably. It probably draws, it does draw minimum 1 card, but it's not going to be uncommon, I don't think, to draw more than 1 card with this. You put a +1 counter on something, or you have another thing floating around, any of the equipment or whatever, you can turn around and get to maybe turn this into a draw 2. The re-equip cost for what you're getting in terms of stats is pretty good. This isn't a card that I'm probably going to push to test, but I do think it's like kind of reasonable. It's probably close to like pump your dude and then draw 1 to 2 cards that turn and then draw more cards on future turns. So I think there's something here. I don't necessarily, like I said, love it. I will say, I do, as the obligatory Stoneforge stand of the bunch, you can flash this with the Stoneforge for 2 mana.
Yep.
And immediately equip it to a creature and then block with that creature, which is pretty awesome.
Add it to the package.
Yeah. Can you give me some thoughts, Chris? Give me at least
if you wanted to test this because of its interaction with Stoneforge Mystic, I would be down. I mean, obviously, if this thing did not auto-equip when you first cast it, it would be completely unplayable.
Of course. Yeah.
But it does do that. This is not like Curious Obsession. This isn't, obviously. I mean, if you cast it and then the thing that you were going to attach it to gets killed, like, you lose out on the free equip. But essentially, at that point, you just have like a higher statted Curious Obsession just kind of like lying around on board. Which I think is also kind of nice because in the event of like a sweeper or there's like a big exchange of resources and you're down like for the rest of the game, basically like any evasive or like moderately statted creature that's going to be able to rumble in combat becomes like a potential draw threat to pull you back into the game. It doesn't scream like ludicrously powerful to me or anything, but I do think that if we wanted to test it, I don't think it would be bad. I do wonder if people would play it, but I think this is a solid card.
I also wonder if people will play it. I think this is the kind of card that it's one of those weird spaces where I think if any of the knobs were any lower, I would be super off of it. But it's like, you're like, okay, well, 4 mana is a lot, but it gets a free equip and it's a lot of stats for for a decent stats for equipment. And like they have to block because otherwise you're drawing a bunch of cards. And then the re-equip cost is 2, which is just enough to get you in the door. It's like everything on this card is just enough to be like, well, I can see the plan here. I can see the vision.
Yeah, I would be game to test this. I mean, I talk about this a lot when we talk about like equip costs and things of that nature. But if you're playing a proactive deck and the game goes long, you will reach a point where you are not spending all of your mana every turn, and this just kind of provides you with a way to do that. So I'm game if you're interested in adding it for the Stoneforge pairing.
Yeah, my biggest concern with this card is it would be probably the third 4 mana effect in blue-white that does this exact same thing, which might start to be getting to levels of density that are unreasonable, between this, Mu Yanling, and Enduring Curiosity. But I also think that these are just the best, like, okay, so I mentioned this on a recent episode that Tim and I did where we were doing a draft review that, like, Enduring Curiosity is probably the best blue card, but I think Mu Yanling is still a top tier blue card, despite being almost objectively worse. And it's just that this effect is so good for what blue and this sort of blue tempo space wants to be doing that it might be that these effects are just like, you kind of have to have one in your deck.
Yeah, I mean, the draw effects, those draw effects in blue have really just revealed themselves to be like some of the best things you can be doing, because a lot of the problem that a lot of blue creature decks run into is because you are, also running removal. If you're playing like a flash-oriented version of the deck, you're running counter spells. You end up being a deck that is trying to win with creatures, but you don't have the same kind of like density of creatures sometimes that other decks do. So you kind of fall prey to really removal dense decks, and the ability to put more cards in your hand like mitigates the fragility of your plan by keeping resources flowing. But it is a fair point, like when you compare this to Curiosity, which is a mono blue card with flash and a stat line. Like this is obviously worse than that, I think.
So yeah, I guess we'll have to source Tim's opinion on this and just see what he thinks. I do think we've got some potential room in blue-white at the moment, especially. I think there's a couple of cards that are not exactly holding up. Well, one specifically that I think we could replace pretty freely to try this out and just see if anybody bites on it. Okay, so this takes us to another piece of equipment, and this is not specifically, like, again, I'm not adding equipment just because I think I'm like, oh, Stoneforge and obsessed with it or anything. But this one I do think is really interesting, and I'm gonna say thank you for the Through the Omen pads, because man, if I had to say Rocket Power Goblin Glider every time I wanted to talk about this card, whatever we get on it is gonna be better.
Rocket Power
Goblin Glider. Yeah, so it's 3 mana colorless for an artifact equipment. When this equipment enters, if it was cast from your graveyard, attach it to target creature you control. How can we do that? Equipped creature gets +2/+0 and has flying and haste. Equip 2, Mayhem 2. So if we can discard this, we get to cast it for a discount out of our graveyard and immediately equip it. So we basically spot ourselves 5 mana, right? 3 to equip, or 3 to play, 2 to equip for only 2 mana. So we get, huge mana discount. So three mana discount. But the big thing that has me on this one is the combination of +2 flying and haste is just a really good combination of aggressively slanted keywords, to the point that this might be worth 5 mana.
Yeah, it might be. I mean, this reads like a green card to me. This reads like a green card that kills you.
Yeah, maybe. I don't actually know what color is interested in this, but this card just reads to me as exceptionally powerful. If you can do the Mayhem thing, that's incredible, right? That makes it a really good blue card in that case. If you're a blue aggressive deck, like these more blue oriented tempo decks, if you're able to convert, something like an Inti in red, being able to discard this is really powerful.
Yeah, that is pretty wild, actually.
This, in terms of what you're getting, might be the best Mayhem card, just because if you Mayhem this for 2 and you get to buff up one of your creatures, give it flying and haste, and just start smacking your opponent in the face, this card's going to kill people really quickly. I think this card's actually might be low-key kind of busted.
Yeah, I could see testing it. I think that if we do play it and people play it, what we're going to see frequently is a green player with access to 6 mana, resolving 4 giant 4-drops and giving them flying haste and extra power.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't put this in most of my red decks, I don't think, or my like more aggressively oriented red decks that have a lot of speedy creatures to begin with. But the power is definitely here. Like +2/+0 flying haste. That is a stat line that is a slate of buffs that kills people.
Yeah, especially for only 2 mana to equip, which is reasonable to like play a medium-sized creature and then be able to equip it in the same turn.
Yeah, and like you're quote unquote you're taking a turn off if you like play it for 3 mana. Like we know this from the experience of having played like because the mana cost and the equip cost are the same as like the swords, right? Like it's a significant investment, but because the equipment is granting your creatures haste, you kind of soak that tempo back up like the first time you equip it, I think.
I also think, unlike the swords, which you almost always want to play and equip in the same turn, I think this one you're fine just being like, all right, I'm going to play a 2-drop and then play this, and then next turn I'll play a land, play a 3-drop and equip or something like that.
This also, like, this might be a little bit of an edge case, but if you're playing into, like, a rock deck with open mana that's clearly just, like, waiting for you to play something to Doomblade it, you can play this if you suspect that they're sitting on, that they're holding up instant speed removal, and then they're immediately just going to, like, hate their life. Because you didn't give them a target to kill, and, like, now you're shoving threats down their throat, like, each turn that they're not holding up that mana. So this does seem powerful to me. I'm actually a little concerned that in the right decks, people will find it like really obnoxious to play against. Like I said, where I see this primarily shining is going to be in like green mid-range decks.
Yeah, I guess I'm seeing this as more of a red card when I was initially thinking about it, but I could see this being a green card. Oh, man, you know what's really sick is you get a Godosaurus Rex and equip for 7 mana. You hit your opponent for 10 mana or for 10 damage.
Oh, that's so
that sounds hilarious.
Yeah,
there's some other good things in the black space, you know, being able to give Sephiroth flying or something like that's pretty crazy. But in red, I will say specifically the red 3-drops, Breaches, Rabblemaster, and Legion Warboss all really like that this card.
That is true. This on the Rabbleman. This on the Warboss is really good too because it just explodes
Scales up
the potential targets for Mentor. Yep.
And make sure Dragging him Berserker are also hilarious because now you can like get it over the top, so you can just boast on the next turn.
Boasting from a rocket-powered Goblin Glider. What an asshole.
What does Magic come to? Yeah, what an asshole. I think this card is sweet. I really want to test this one.
All right, cool. I'm game. I mean, we don't get a ton of colorless cards that we've talked about this a lot on the show. We don't get a lot of colorless cards that are like both that are most of the color. I'm malfunctioning. Most of the colorless cards that we get are just like not good, or they're obnoxiously good, and there isn't a whole lot of room in between.
Yeah, my suspicion is that this would be closer to the latter than the former, but probably not to the point of not to the same degree as some of the previous ones we've seen.
Right.
Okay, and that takes us to the last 2 cards, one of which will be very quick. No, actually, both of these might be quick because I don't think either of them are crazy good. So this is Interdimensional Web Watch. It's 4 colorless mana for an artifact. When it enters, exile the top 2 cards of your library until the end of your next turn. You may play those cards. And then it has tap, add 2 mana in any combination of colors. Spend this mana only to cast spells from exile. And I only want to mention this because, again, we don't have a lot of decent colorless cards. And I thought this was kind of cool in that it's expensive draw, right? 4 mana for a draw 2 is not very good. But this kind of sneaky only costs 2 mana, assuming your curve is low, because you can play this. This comes into play untapped, and then you can tap it immediately for 2 mana to cast a spell. So we could go like 4, cast this, and then, you know, we cast our 2 mana spell, and this is just like our top end card draw. And the next turn, we've got a bunch of mana to use with it for free. I suspect you have to get more out of this than what the card itself is offering for it to be worth it. But as we get more impulse draw in, especially, it seems to be something that they're really pushing. I could see this to be the kind of card that eventually does just incidentally get there.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think you need more than what the card itself is spotting you, but I do think it's an interesting design. I'm willing to bet, I know this is like the only Magic format I like ever talk about now, but I'm willing to bet that this like will start showing up in like Brawl decks just because, you know, you're always going to have something. If your commander's on board, you're doing great, and if your commander's not on board, it's going to get expensive quick.
Yeah,
So
this strikes me too as this struck me as a very commander coded card in a vacuum because I think mana rocks are generally a scam in Commander. That might be my hot take of the day for that format.
I haven't played Commander in a long time.
But I think I think this one's actually kind of good because again, if you're trying to keep your curve low, you could do some things with it. And like if you impulse draw a couple of cards and like you get to start using this, especially in your commander decks where you actually have a lot of these impulse draw effects, this seems really, really powerful. Basically, my view on mana rocks is in most decks, mana rocks are just land drops that you have to pay mana for.
Interesting.
That's obviously a little bit of an over like what is it?
Yeah, you're clearly not talking about Soul Ring, but.
Oh yeah, no, that one nets mana. I mean like 2 mana, like Arcane Signet, I think is generally a card that I'm not particularly, or like Signets are not a card type that I'm particularly fond of in Commander, unless your deck has a very specific reason to want to use them. All that aside, I think this card was just a cool mention because it does like have some internal synergy, and I think especially as we get more cards like Foretell and Warp and all of these other kind of alternate cast mechanics that use the Exile Zone, I could see this ending up being the kind of card that we do become interested in, just because I think the floor is reasonably high on it. I'm not saying it's crazy high, but I do think it's reasonably high.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting design. Like, it's nice to see that they can still kind of like find ways to package effects that are interesting or eyebrow raising, considering that there's literally tens of thousands of Magic cards at this point, which is mind boggling.
Yeah, and then we'll take our last card here is Terminate.
They're giving us Terminate. Yeah, I mean, there's not really a whole lot to say other than like if you're still playing Terminate in your red-black section, I assume that you're trying to model your cube off of like really, really old traditional cube designs. I'm not convinced that Terminate is better than Bitter Triumph, and it costs 2 different colors. So that's my take on this card.
Yeah, I think a more apt comparison might be something like Mind Collapse out of LCI that we got. It's you trade the instant speed for sorcery, but it can target planeswalkers and it can pick up 2-for-1 value on occasion. So I mostly agree with you. I think the biggest pull to a card like this, if you really want to run it, is trying to give certain color pairs more access to certain effects, but I'm not entirely sure that red-black actually needs more Doomblades. It's kind of just the Doomblade color.
It is, yeah. I was about to say, like, we've previously on the show, it might have been the previous iteration of the show when it was just me and Tim, like, many years ago now, but we talked about, reasons versus rewards as in our gold conversation, and just for anybody who's not familiar with that, like, a reason in your gold section is like a card that's very powerful and like kind of does a thing that signals what that color pair wants to do, and it's like a reason to do a strategy. Whereas a reward is just like Terminate, where it's like, okay, well, if you're red-black, like you're going to get Terminate if it gets opened, and it's not like in the pack with something else that you need because like who else is going to play it, and it's like a premium version of an effect. But I mean, Terminate is a very old card at this point, and it used to really outshine, maybe not even really outshine, but it outshined your monocolored options more than I think it does today. I don't find Terminate to be a compelling, like, cube inclusion for that reason. I think there's probably better things to do with the room that you make for gold cards, but it's cool to have it.
Yeah, and I think there's space for reasons and rewards. We run a mix in our different multicolor sections. But yeah, I think this is just not quite enough of it isn't doing something that's even particularly powerful anymore compared to something like No More Lies, which is like a very effective counterspell that also has the unique upside of being an exile effect. That's a pretty powerful reward because that's a rare effect and it has upside over the other versions.
Right.
Whereas this is just kind of like below rate at this point.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, in this day and age, do you think that they would print, like, the power level of contemporary Magic, do you think that they would print, like, red-black, destroy target, like, creature or artifact?
I don't see why they couldn't. I would be surprised if that's not already enough. None comes to mind, so I guess it's not. Other than, like, Molten Collapse can destroy, a 1-mana artifact, I think.
Yeah, 1-mana non-land permanent.
Non-land permanent, sure. Yeah, so
yeah.
I think I'm surprised we don't see more of that modality used on these multicolor gold slots, so maybe that's something we'll see more of in the future.
There's the one from Return to Ravnica that's like black, red, and it hits creature, artifact, or planeswalker, but it's extremely insanely costed and it's expensive.
Yeah, so I think that's enough talking about Terminate,
OG
card,
fair enough.
But not really a thing that we care too much about. So let's talk about our overall impressions. I'm very, very excited that we're getting through the Omen paths. I was actually kind of memeing on it for the longest time, but as it got closer to the set and we saw more of it, I'm just really not wanting to have a million actual Spider-Mans in our cube. I don't like these art for the most part, outside of a handful of pieces. I think on the whole, these are going to be upgrades of art that we get and vibes that we get on our client. I will say there were more of the card designs that I do like than I was expecting at first, and I will give designers credit that a lot of these cards feel like they kind of, my limited knowledge of of Marvel Comics, it feels like they did a lot of justice to some of these cards in terms of, and while also making them be cool Magic to get the Gathering game pieces. This was not for me, but I will also try to be reasonable when I say that, like, while I prefer that Universes Beyond be fantasy adjacent stuff, Final Fantasy or Dark Souls type stuff, I know this is going to pull people in. And if they stay, I guess that's okay. I mean, I don't know. I kind of don't like the touristy vibes that I'm getting from these sort of sets. It feels like they attract people who like this IP and then they probably leave, or they expect more of this IP in Magic, which encourages WotC to do that. All of that aside, like as far as the actual game pieces go, I think there were a lot of really cool designs and I want to give the designers credit for that. I think this set looks like it came together reasonably well for what it was and what it started as. Like, this could have been an unmitigated disaster, and I think it ended up being somewhat coherent as at least when I'm looking at the broad picture of like how the mechanics interact and like how some of the card types interact and stuff. Like, not my thing, but I can give the designers credit that I think they probably did a decent enough job with what they had access to here.
Yeah, there were more interesting designs than I anticipated. I'm grateful for Ponder. I'm not going to soapbox too hard because I'm extremely tired, and also like everything and like going on like in the culture right now is like such dog shit that like there's just, you can go listen to somebody complaining about something like literally anywhere. It's basically what our entertainment has become. But one thing that I do find really fucking obnoxious is when they started doing this Universes Beyond shit and people started throwing fits about it, the sort of almost condescending rebuttal to that from representatives of the company is, oh, this product is just not for you. And that's okay. Like, sure, not every product is for me, but when you are putting these Universes Beyond products into standard, you are forcing your players who don't want to engage with your Universes Beyond shit, who want to play competitive Magic, which is not me, but like, you're now saying this product that is not for you is a Magic product that you have to engage with whether you like it or not. Mm-hmm. And it's deeply cynical. It's deeply salesy, and I just think that's really obnoxious, especially when your Universes Beyond product, you start doing so much of it that you're edging out product that is for the player base of the game that made you fucking rich. I just think WotC can sit on a dick and spin. Like, this really, really, really fucking annoys me. Like, if you want to dedicate resources to Universes Beyond, fine. Just make more fucking product, which is not something I ever thought I would say because they make so much product now. But just, like, the fact that they're starting to supplant, like, standard set releases with these is just, like, come on, guys. Like, That's my 2 cents. Like, I can buy the, like, this is not for you, like, whatever, even though you're saying it out of the side of your mouth, right, and you're being cynical about it. Like, I can accept that. But when you introduce it into, like, the standard rotation, it's just like, fuck you.
The statements of like, this is not for you, stop being relevant once you're forced to, if you want to play it competitively. Like, you're no longer like this is not for you was maybe applicable when it was like Commander product that is only legal in Commander. Right. Or whatever.
Yeah.
And even then, like, the idea that, what are you supposed to do? Like, just start getting up from every table that plays a Universes Beyond card, being like, this is not for me. I don't want to see this. I don't want to interact with it. I'll go find Magic purists, I guess. But that feels like a great way to divide your community very, very quickly. I also think there's a risk of saying that this product is not for you enough times that people start to take that maybe this game is not for them, especially when you consider the sort of, again, as I mentioned, touristy nature of some of these. Like, I'm going to call it the Fortnitification. I've heard that somewhere and I'm not sure where. So credit to whoever first said that. But this sort of like, we are literally meeting at the intersection of a million different cultural products that all can't just be unique anymore. They can't be their own thing. We have to have infinite crossovers. And I kind of liked when there were, walls up that like Magic the Gathering was its own thing, and it would homage things or it would reference things from other things, but it wasn't literally the thing.
Right.
Streets of New Capenna maybe being a good example of like, it was supposed to be referencing, mob movies, but like, what if we just got a Godfather Universes Beyond or something? Like that would have been
we just put like Marlon Brando's fat ass on a Magic card. Yeah.
Yeah. So, we've already had our rant episode about it. I'm not happy about this as a whole. I obviously hope Magic continues to succeed as a game because I like this game. It's been probably my favorite game of all time overall, just in terms of peak enjoyment and the sort of enjoyment I get out of talking about Magic cards, which I actually enjoy more than playing a lot these days. So, yeah. I think that these sort of things are risks, though. They don't, I know right now the sales are, bank busters or whatever, but I think most of the people interested in Spider-Man are not necessarily the same people who are interested in Magic the Gathering. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but it does feel like there's a lot of risk there. In any case, that's before we get into do you have anything?
This just like, I'm gonna avoid going on a rant, but like, at admin reveal, if it wasn't clear from some of the other comments I've made on the podcast, like this set like triggers my leftism real hard. I'm just like, fuck you guys. Like, this is such a cynical cash grab. Like, get out of my face. Like, everything is about money everywhere all the time. Everything has been financialized, and like, obviously this is a game. Like, the point is to like sell units. I get that. But it's like these companies like won't stop until they've squeezed like every ounce of profit out of everything, even if it means like cynically thieving the joy and engagement of the people who like made the property valuable in the first place. It's just, I don't know. This just triggers my get the fuck out of my face like real hard.
Yeah, I also find this thing frustrating. In any case, that's going to do it for us. Remember, you can check out our socials on Twitter at Jankdiver Gaming, YouTube and youtube.com/Jankdiver Gaming. You can also find me streaming on twitch.tv/Teld Talks, and I have a YouTube channel of the same name. We don't do any sort of farewells or anything for set reviews, and our next episode will probably be the long-awaited White rework dev diary we've been putting off.
We're gonna solve it, guys. We're gonna solve White. We're gonna fix it.
Which we'll see. I think White's been performing a little bit better lately, so maybe we don't need to make huge grand scale changes. But we definitely have a list of cards that we are interested in trying to add into the environment, maybe to give White a little more flexibility and stuff. So we'll
you know what we need to do? You know what we need to do? So we received a comment that Zoomers can't consume culture without having a video to look at. So what we should do is for the White rework, we should release a video recording of ourselves doing it, and I think we should all buy like mechanic shirts with like our name tags on them and like display like various wrenches and hammers and winches and things, because we're gonna get under the hood, baby. We're gonna tune it up.
Yeah, we'll just record a video of one of us painting a room white, and that'll be the video to keep.
Oh, dude, I'm gonna shave all of my facial hair off except for the mustache. I'm gonna go. You heard it here first, guys. I'm going all in.
All right, so we'll see you there when we get to that episode. I'm sure Tim will continue to do magic and post editing that'll make me sound like I know what I'm doing as we get out of this set review, and hope everybody has a good rest of your day, and hopefully through the Omen Paths, which we'll see on Monday, will give us some good art for this set. We can at least be hopeful.
Arachnaboy. All right, later, guys.
Hey, boss, who's the guy in the tank? Oh, that's Teld. Super dangerous. School teacher and part-time Magic the Gathering podcaster. Why is he contained, though? Haven't you heard? He's the Winter Warrior. You mean Winter Soldier? No, can't use that name. Arena didn't get the license in. Anyway, we're going to break him out of here. Are you sure we should do that? We have to. He's the only thing that can help us secure licensing on MTG Arena, so we don't have to put up with through the Omen Paths versions of Universes Beyond sets anymore. How do we activate him? He's been conditioned with a set of highly specific words and phrases. He might resist, but if he hears these phrases in a specific order, it'll unlock the altered part of his brain that's been conditioned to follow orders from the person who spoke them out loud. Now I need you to stand back. Skyfisher. Stoneforge Mystic.
No, please, no, don't.
OTJ Peak. Really, really bad.
Please, you don't know what you're doing.
Cracked in half. Heartfire Hero. Chickadee China of the Chinese Chicken.
Get out of my head.
Washed. Rocket Power Goblet Glider. Low key kinda busted.
Please, stop what you're doing.
Jack White. Doug is a Cube. Blue Black Spooky. And finally, Glimmerlight Peak. Glimmerlight Peak. Did it work, boss? No, it doesn't seem like it. Something must be wrong. Here, let me take a look for a second. Oh, right there, you forgot this line. Ah, yes, of course. I'll speak this and the Winter Warrior will finally be active. Rubber baby bumpy buggers. No. Bubber baby bunky bumper. Bumper banky buggy baby bunky bubby baby bumper. Rubber runky rubber runky bubber bunker runker runky baby bumble rubber. Boss, that's enough. It's impossible. I'm afraid you're right. You win this round, Winter Warrior, but I'll be back, and my tongue will be less twisted. Captain Vespucci and the Avengites can't be allowed to win this war. Mark my words, Teld. Your days are numbered.